Okay, so the recording has started. I'm going to hand over to the chair, Councillor Anna Abella.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Abella, and I am the chair of the licensing committee. I'm going to start the meeting by asking the other councillors on this subcommittee to introduce themselves. Councillor Gunas, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Makbule Gunas. I'm a member of this subcommittee tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Da Costa?
Councillor Nick Da Costa, member for Highgate Ward.
Thank you. Could I ask the legal officer to introduce herself, please?
Hi, I'm Eileen Finkelton. I'm in-house solicitor for Haringey.
Thank you. And could I ask the licensing team leader to introduce herself?
Good evening, I'm Dale Barrett. I'm the licensing team leader.
And could I ask the clerk to introduce himself?
Good evening, I'm Nazir Chowdhury, clerk to the subcommittee.
Thank you. Now, I just want to verify who is going to speak on the Victoria Stakes item. Correct me if I'm wrong, Naz. So we have the review applicant Una Shields.
That's what I've got, yes.
And is she present on the call?
She is present, as I understand it. Miss Shields, do you want to say hello to the subcommittee?
Hello, committee members. Thank you for hearing me tonight.
Thank you. And the supporters of the review, I understand, are Mr. Bellringer. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Craig Bellringer, Senior Noise and Nuisance Officer.
Thank you. Is Councillor Cathy Brennan on the call, please?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Thank you, Anna.
Excellent. And is Mr. Paul Eagles?
Yes, I'm here, that's right.
The call. And is Michelle Wyckoff Smith on the call?
Yes, here I am. Yep.
Excellent. Are you the four individuals who all want to speak to support the review? Or would you like to choose a couple of representatives?
I'm happy to have Paul speak on our behalf because he's basically my next door neighbor. But if I can pipe in at the end, if there seems to be anything he's missed, I will just do a very brief, if that's fine.
Okay, you will have set time, so you'll have to manage your time to make sure you all speak. So Paul will speak and Michelle might come in at the end, and then Craig and Councillor Brennan, I assume you also want to speak. Is that correct?
Yes, please. Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously I've added some conditions,
Excellent.
some recommendations. So,
We'll hand over to you. We also have the license holder for Victoria Stakes, Mr. McCann. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, evening Chair. My name's Neil McCann. I'm the solicitor for the applicant. I'm proposing to do all the oral submissions, but I do have a team with me to answer any queries your colleagues have. Do you want me to introduce them to you?
How many are there?
4,
team?
if I can
Okay.
count.
Yeah.
So I
it.
have Lewis Johnson, who's the chef patron of Victoria Stakes. Not sure if you can say hello.
Hello, good evening.
Yep, I've got James Watson, who's the FD.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Yep, I've got Ben Abrahams, who is the previous owner of Victoria Stakes. Ben, can you just say a few words?
Good evening, everyone.
Fine. And also I've got Richard Vivian. He's an acoustic expert from Big Sky Acoustics. Richard?
Good evening, Chair. Good evening.
So I'll do the talking, Chair, to keep things brief, but they're here to pitch and answer questions.
Thank you. And then we have supporters of the license holder. Have any of the supporters joined the meeting, and are any of them planning to speak? I can't see if anyone has their... Oh, I see Mr. Douglas Crickler. Mr. Douglas, are you a supporter of the license holder?
Yes, I am.
And would you like to speak in support of the license holder during the meeting?
I'm happy to.
Thank you. Mr. Thakur? Mr. Thakur, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. This is myself and my wife, Leanne. We've both submitted separate emails. We are supporters of the pub. We would be happy to speak if that would be of benefit.
So we'll decide on timings later on in the meeting, but essentially, you will have to find a way to split the time with Mr. Douglas Crickler. So it's up to you how you decide to split the speaking time between you, but you will have to stick to a time limit. Ms. Barrett?
Sorry, Chair, can you just give me a moment? I just need to check on the list to make sure Mr. Crickler had made representation, please. So I can
Just
come
to say,
back to you.
it's my wife, Tally Crickler, who submitted the representation.
And I'm here.
And she's here, which happened to be using my my device to join the call because hers wasn't working. So it's in her name rather than mine. Tally, Tali, Crickler.
Sorry, that would mean, Mr. Crickler, that only your wife, only the registered person can really speak.
That's fine. Sure.
Okay. I don't know, Chair.
Have we confirmed, Ms. Barrett, that Ms. Crickler is on the list?
I'm just looking. Yes, Chair. With Tally Crickler, yes, we do have her.
Excellent. I will just make a note of that. Miss Wyckoff-Smith, you have your hand up. Did you want to come in? No. Mr. Reid.
Hi there. I'd like to speak on behalf of the pub, if there's time, and depending on what everyone else says before me.
Okay. We'll set time
as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. So we'll set a time limit, and then it's up to the three of you how you split the time limit between you. So that brings us to the end of this of the list of speakers for Victoria Stakes. We also have individuals here who are here to speak about Tottenham Post Office. So we have the applicant for Tottenham Post Office and their representative. Could you kindly introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Vishal Patel. I'm a representative of the Tottenham Post Office, and
my name is Pankaj Kanani. I am the licensing holder for Tottenham Post Office, and we both are using one device for this meeting.
Thank you. And who would like to speak to object against this? I understand, if I am not mistaken. Yes?
That would be me, Selena.
Selena.
Emmanuel.
And I can see someone else on the call with you. Would they like to speak as well, or is it only you?
Selena can speak behalf of all of us.
Okay, I'll mark Selena as the speaker. And I can see that the ward councillor is on the call. Councillor Bevan, would you like to speak as well?
Yes, I would like to speak, yes.
Thank you. Can you briefly introduce yourself, Councillor Bevan?
I'm a councillor for Northumberland Park, the area involved, and I've been a councillor for a substantial number of years. I know the area extremely well.
Thank you. I can also see that the police constable, if I'm not mistaken, has raised their hand. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, I'm PC Kostak, I'm licensing officer, and as well in the call there is Sergeant Novak, who is Sergeant for Northumberland Park. I think he raised a hand.
Excellent. I am not seeing the other police officer on my screen. Would you like to come in to introduce yourself?
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Edward Novak. I'm the ward sergeant for Northumberland Park.
Thank you. And Mr. Bellringer, would you also like to come in on this item?
Yes, please, Chair.
Thank you. So I've marked you down as well. So we've quite a lot of people who want to speak today. So we'll try to be disciplined to make sure we run this meeting efficiently. So as you'll all be aware, this meeting is being recorded and it will be available for public viewing. Clerk, have there been any apologies for absence?
No apologies, Chair. All members are present.
Thank you. And have there been any items for urgent business?
None listed, Chair.
Thank you. And do any of the members of the subcommittee have any declarations of interest to make?
None to declare, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you both. So I'll move to a summary of the procedure. The procedure for the meeting was emailed to all participants by the clerk. For the purposes of any members of the public watching, for the first application, we will first hear from the licensing officer. Then the review applicant will present their case. The license holder and the subcommittee will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the supporters of the review will present their representation, and the license holder and the subcommittee will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the license holder will present their representation. The subcommittee and review applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the objectors to the review will present their representation, and the subcommittee and review applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. Please keep your camera on when speaking. For the second application on the agenda, we will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the applicant will present their case. The objectors and the subcommittee will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the objectors will present their representation, and the subcommittee and applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up, and then the meeting will conclude to allow the subcommittee to deliberate and reach a decision. The decision will then be provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. If you wish to speak, please raise a virtual hand and direct all communication via the chair. We will take all papers as read unless there is anything you wish to draw our attention to. All speakers will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time unless you request an extension of time, which is at the discretion of the chair. Please do not share addresses of speakers. In the event that there are several speakers for each party, please avoid repetition. And we have already discussed that it is possible to have a spokesperson who addresses all of the concerns of a particular group of people on this call. So that brings us to the end of the procedure. So before we move to the main agenda, it was brought to my attention that the applicant for the item on Tottenham Post Office would like to request an adjournment. Is that correct, Ms. Barrett?
That's correct, although I note the applicant has arrived with his representative, and there are, of course, the residents and the ward council, the maid residents are here this evening. So if you want to hear from the applicant from the post office first, please, Chair.
Thank you. Could the applicant for the post office confirm whether they still would like to request an adjournment?
Yes. We would like to continue with the application because the review is something we would like to subcommittee to look into this place.
Thank you. So in that case, we are going to follow the order of the agenda. We are going to start with the item on Victoria Stakes, and then we will turn to the item on Tottenham Post Office. So, moving on to the first item on the agenda, which relates to an application for review of a premises license at the Victoria Stakes. Ms. Barrett, please can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. I shall give a brief overview of the matter before the committee this evening. So you have a review for Victoria Stakes at 1 Muswell Hill, London N10. The review has been submitted by Miss Shields, a local resident, citing concerns about noise, public nuisance impacting nearby residential properties. The Victoria Stakes has a premises license that allows it to do the supply of alcohol. You've got the timings for that, for the supply of alcohol before you, Chair, and a copy of the premises license is also included in the pack. The supply of alcohol should be noted that it is ancillary to a meal in this regard. And just to remind the committee that because the premises has the ability to do on sales, it therefore benefits from the automatic right to provide regulated entertainment in the form of live or recorded music between the hours of 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. under the exemption regulations. During the consultation period, representations were received from the noise team that you have at Appendix C, the residential residents supporting the review at Appendix D, residents supporting the venue at Appendix E, and there is also an informative email included from the planning officer that was really giving an overview of the current situation and making clear that there was a planning application also in play. In terms of background, the premises is located in a residential area with outdoor drinking spaces, including a rear glass covered area, which is subject to planning conditions at this moment, restricting its use from 8 until 11 p.m. and prohibiting live and amplified music from that area. There is a cellar also, a ground floor and a first floor dining area. The venue is well used and it attracts a visiting crowd from events related to Alexandra Palace, for instance, when events and so forth are taking place there. With regard to the planning conditions for the rear covered area, there is a current application with planning for a certificate of lawful use, which is like a retrospective planning permission, basically. So there is already planning there, and it has conditions on it. But I believe the certificate of lawful use is also asking for background music and amplified sound to be incorporated into the planning permission for this particular part of the building. The council has details of noise complaints, starting with one in 2016, and the noise officer's representation that you have before you states a total of 55 in recent times, leading up to the review. There are about 7 to 10 representations in support of the review and over 150 representations in support of the pub. A meeting was held between Ms. Shields, Councillor Brennan, and the pub representatives on the 29th of December. And in the pack, you have there an email, which is Ms. Shields' account of that meeting. And there is also a further email that provides some recording of noise Ms. Shields says she'd encountered on the same day following that meeting. Within the pack, there is the documentation that Mr. McCann has submitted. There are additional documents which I'm sure Mr. McCann will take the committee through when speaking with his witnesses with him this evening. And there is also further recording that has been submitted and been made available to the committee. Mr. McCann has also sent through a list of proposed conditions The backyard referred to in the conditions document is the area with the glass roof for clarification. The reference to no music in the outside area, therefore, I am taking it to mean the strip of land between the pub and the residential properties itself. In terms of consideration, the committee is able to consider whether to modify the license conditions, exclude any licensed activities, remove the designated premises supervisor, suspend the license up to 3 months, or to revoke the license. Actions must be appropriate and proportionate and not merely desirable. And just to remind the panel that the Human Rights Act and Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act should also be taken into consideration here. The subcommittee must determine whether current operations undermine licensing objectives and decide on appropriate steps if they consider it necessary to do so to address concerns balancing residents' amenity with the venue's lawful operation. And there I can leave it if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. So at this stage, I'm only going to take questions from the members of the subcommittee, Councillor Da Costa and Councillor Gunas. Do you have any questions on Ms. Barrett's report?
No question, Chair. Thank you.
No question from me at this.
Thank you. So before we proceed with this item, I just want to split the speaking time between the different speakers. Mr. McCann, is your hand raised in relation to speaking time?
Chair, it's just raised about something in the committee report, which I think is a misunderstanding and quite fundamental about one condition proffered. In terms of,
I think, would it be possible for you to mention that in your intervention?
I think it will probably assist the applicant if she
Okay.
understands that, because it's a much bigger offer than I think has been described.
Okay.
When we talk about the outside area, that includes the outside area that's covered. So it's slightly it's terminology, but it's not just the side strip. It's the entire area that's under the glass we refer to as the outside backyard, and therefore only deregulated background music.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. So I'll now move to divide speaking time between the speakers. And essentially what I would like to do is ensure that both those in favor of the review and those against the review together have 20 minutes of speaking time. So I'm going to propose to assign 5 minutes of speaking time to Ms. Una Shields, 5 minutes to Craig Bellringer, 5 minutes to Councillor Brennan, and if Paul Eagles and Michelle Wyckoff-Smith could split 5 minutes between them. And so in total, we will hear from those who are in favour of the review for 20 minutes. And then for the license holder, I will give 5 minutes to Mr. McCann, 5 minutes to Ms. Crickler, 5 minutes to Mr. Thakur, and 5 minutes to Mr. Paul Reed. And so that would be 20 minutes in total for those who are against the review. Is that clear? Ms. Wyckoff-Smith, is your question about this point? You're on mute, Ms. Wyckoff-Smith.
Okay. I'd like to give Paul Eagles my entire time. That's fine. No, we don't need to split it.
Thank you, Ms. Wyckoff-Smith. In that case, I'll make note of that. Mr. Thakur?
Yeah, I was going to say I can offer up my speaking time as well to representatives supporting the Victoria Stakes. We don't need to speak.
Thank you. And Mr. McCann?
I was about to steal the time, but they've given it up. I think I'd probably need, subject to what the applicant says, maybe 8-9 minutes. So
in that case, I'll give you 10 minutes and Mr. Thakur won't speak. Yes. So in that case, we will have 20 minutes for both sides of the argument, which is fair. So we will start off with hearing from the review applicant. Ms. Shields, you have 5 minutes and I will start my timer now.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the committee and everybody else on this call. I hope I'm clearly audible to everybody. All right, my name is Una Shiel. Great, okay, super. My name is Una Shiel. I live at 1C Muswell Hill, and my home directly adjoins the covered dining area or the yard of the Victoria Stakes pub. I am one of the closest residential neighbours to that space, and I'm speaking on behalf of my household and affected neighbours. I want to be clear at the outset, I'm not opposed to the pub. I'm not anti-business. I know that the Victoria Stakes is a much loved and beautiful, valued community asset. I lived here for years with very few issues. Under the previous ownership, when problems did arise, they were dealt with very quickly and respectfully, and a licensing review was never needed. What has changed is not my home. What has changed is how the premises is now being run. Since the changes in management, the impact on my home life has been constant and intrusive and exhausting. This review is not about one loud night or a single summer event. The disturbance has continued, including weekdays, early mornings, and times when the yard was otherwise empty. I live and work from my home. It's where my child studies, where my family eats, and where we try to spend time together. Since mid-2025, there has been regular amplified music and loud voices from the covered dining area, early morning and late night disturbance from cleaning and staff activity, mechanical noise from equipment running on and off overnight, and light pollution from lights left on long after closing time. There have also been events of a scale and intensity that completely overwhelm my household. My home is about 3 feet from the covered dining area, and the separation is a thin garden fence, a wooden fence that's slatted, gappy in parts and in poor repair in some parts. There have been repeated occasions where I have been able to clearly identify songs, individual conversations inside my home, inside every room in my home with all windows and door closed. I can hear individual conversations, speeches and shouting. And on some occasions, my children and I have had to leave the home because the noise was simply too overwhelming. This is not hypersensitivity on my part or on my children's part. This is the persistence of noise. What residents are describing here in terms of noise is not a technical reading, but it's the repeated evident experience of noise inside our homes over time and confirmed by noise officer attendance. Council noise officers have attended and witnessed disturbance from the outdoor area. They've spoken to management. Planning enforcement has already reminded the premises of its obligations in relation to that space. I have used the council's noise app and formal reporting processes, so concerns were logged consistently through the proper channels. I have been told, and you'll have read, that this could all have been resolved with face-to-face conversation, and I want the committee to understand why that hasn't been realistic. Over this period, there has been a high staff turnover, contradictory explanations about whether equipment was running or not, no consistent point of contact, and a lack of clear or reliable responses around mitigation during events, including those operating under temporary event notices. I did speak to staff, both by phone and in person, about excessive noise, rubbish issues, and practical mitigation. I deliberately asked for communication in writing to avoid misunderstandings and to keep an accurate record. For example, I emailed Lewis Johnson on 17th of October saying I was happy to meet to discuss and asking him to let me know when he was free. I did not receive a reply to that email. I don't think written communication is unreasonable when impacts are ongoing and serious, and I think they protect both parties. So why does this matter for licensing? Well, I'm not here to argue about decibel readings or technical acoustics. The issue is control. I do not believe that a well-run premises allows customers to control their own sound systems, leaves music playing in an empty yard.
Ms. Shields,
Yeah?
your time is up. Could you conclude, please?
Oh, okay. In conclusion, then, I'm asking for clear, enforceable conditions that restore basic residential protection and predictability, including, may I finish?
Briefly, please.
Okay, no live or amplified music and no speakers in the rear covered dining area, clear limits on that use of space as dining only, a defined closure time for the yard of 10 p.m, and controls on cleaning, plant and equipment so residents are not disturbed in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shields. We'll now take questions for Ms. Shields. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for Ms. Shields?
Yes, I do. Apologies, I couldn't find the unmute. You mentioned, Ms. Shields, in your submission that the change has been significant with the change of ownership. Can you sort of give an overview of what it was like under the previous ownership and what you think the most significant difference has been?
I think it did seem to be a very well-run pub when the previous owner had it. The staff seemed to be very responsive, and it did seem that they wanted to have good relations with their neighbours. I could sense that it was a very community-minded operation.
Okay, and then with regards to because in your submission you've submitted a lot of very useful information, and thank you very much for that. You mentioned that the noise, there's been significant noise issues. You mentioned light pollution, you mentioned a plant being left on, and then noise from events. With regards to noise from events or noise from activities taking place in the backyard, specifically, leaving aside cleaning operations and plant, what time of day, is there a sort of time of day that it's usually acutely noticeable? Is there a pattern in the week, for example, as well as when it's acutely noticeable to you?
There was a pattern in the week under the previous ownership, but I think the usage and the intensity has increased under new ownership. And it's very difficult for me to say that, yes, Thursday, Friday and Saturday nights are busy, because there were afternoon events on a Wednesday afternoon, for example. It became very difficult for me to be able to plan what I could expect in my own home.
Okay, thank you. And would you say, sort of linked to this question, would you say that the significant noise is linked to the larger events held there rather than sort of day-to-day operations or sort of regular drinking and dining?
I don't think it's limited. I think it's both, actually. It's not limited to bigger events. It seems that there has become a pattern of unpredictability. It's not really that I can say that I can expect a few busy nights a week.
Okay, thank you for the moment, Chair. Those are my questions. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Shields.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Councillor Gunas, do you have any questions for Ms. Shields?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Ms. Shields, thank you for your representation and your submissions. I just wanted to kind of like you made reference to conversation being difficult with the current owners, current business owner, that basically your attempt to sort of convey this experiences of yourself, your family, and also your neighbors has not been received well, or it's not been responded to. So I wanted to talk, can you elaborate a little bit more? What you mentioned that you've wrote a letter, email to them on October the 17th, but what other sort of attempts have you made to basically establish some contact to raise these issues?
Okay, so in the pack, you will see, dating from mid-June, some WhatsApp messages between myself and the then manager, Jake Reynolds, regarding timing of construction work, music playing in the covered dining yard at like 6 a.m. So under the previous ownership, I felt like I had a good kind of route of communication between not just the former owner, but also his managers. And so I was given Jake Reynolds' number by a previous manager. I didn't know she had moved on. And so I had continued in that vein. And then as noise began to get more overwhelming, I went to email. I found out that there was an operations manager. I reached out to her. I explained how it was becoming more and more difficult to work and live in my own home with the noise coming from the pub. And then the present manager came in and communication continued in email. I did see people, I did speak to people, I spoke to staff. I had to ring the pub several occasions to ask them to turn down the music or to tell them that the music was still playing in the covered dining yard when the pub was closed. So I think I was clear that I felt written communication was safer given the large number of incidents that were occurring. But I did also speak in person to people at the pub, including the current manager.
Mm-hmm. What I'm getting, sorry, just to follow up, what I'm getting from your response is that your continuous effort to basically address this through effective communication, like all communication, has not really delivered a result, like the action of the business managers, or have they acted on any of those issues that you raised? Have they addressed or attempted to address any of those issues?
Yeah, so during weddings, there was speeches set up or microphones set up in the corner beside my living room. And then I sent a video of what I could hear inside my home, which was a very kind of vulgar type of wedding speech. And then Lewis Johnson moved the microphone to the further side of the yard, which made a big difference.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, if I could just say that I did actually ask very directly what mitigations were going to be put in place around the time when they received a temporary event notice, and I didn't receive any answer to that. So it has been patchy.
Thank you, Ms. Sheila, and thank you, Councillor Gunas. I'll now turn to the licence holder and his representative. Do you have questions for Ms. Sheila?
No, Chair, I don't. Not at this juncture.
No, and we had a number of supporters of the licence holder. So we had Miss Crickler and Mr. Reid. Do you have any questions for Miss Sheila? I'm checking to see if anyone has put their hand up.
None for me. Thanks.
It's Tully Crickler here, just to say no questions, and also I'm happy to give my 5 minutes to Mr. McCann as well. I don't need it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in that case, Mr. McCann, you now have 15 minutes to speak. Councillor Da Costa, do you have another question for Ms. Sheila?
I do. Apologies, I've got two questions. One of them I missed the first time around. The second one is following Councillor Gunas's questions. My first question relates to you mentioned that the wedding where and I've forgotten the name of the person you spoke to. I want to say Lewis, but I think that's wrong. Agreed to move the microphone to the other side of the area, and that seemed to mitigate the noise from the speeches. That's a very useful example. Is that sort of the reaction you'd like, the responsiveness you'd like to see from the Victoria Stakes in the future when there are issues, because it's possible the issues may still occur? Is that sort of responsiveness you'd like to see?
Yes. I mean, absolutely. The former owner, there were very few issues, and he was always very respectful and quick.
And then my second question, which is the one I missed to ask, was in the most recent bundle submitted, which is additional pack 2, on page 13, there are the conditions that Mr. McCann will probably speak to in his submission. Have you had a chance to review those, and what are your thoughts of those conditions being offered?
I have had a chance to look at them. I think the assurances are very welcome, but what I would be most comfortable with and what would give me most predictability is if the conditions are specified and written into the license. I think that would be the safest way to proceed going forward, considering the high staff turnover there's been even since June.
Thank you very much. Chair, that was the last questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will now turn to the supporters of the review. So I'll start with Mr. Bellringer. You have 5 minutes to make your representation.
Hi, Chair. Yeah, so the Noise and Nuisance Service have received 55 complaints since July of 2025. Officers have been and witnessed sort of loud people noise from inside residents' property. I personally met with the operations director and Lewis Johnson in the summertime and explained obviously the uptake of complaints that we've been receiving about noise from the outside area. We haven't witnessed any sort of statutory noise from Victoria Stakes. I also, in my representation, added in some conditions for the committee to sort of have a look at that potentially could mitigate some of the noise and some of the issues that have been reported by the review applicant. I did meet with Mr. McCann and Richard Vivian from the acoustic consultant. They've also sent through some conditions for me to have a look at, which I am in agreement with most of the conditions, but I do sort of err on the side of caution that that area isn't soundproofed. It is an open area and there is residential properties close by. And with a large amount of people, with background noise, with people having speeches, there is a potential for public nuisance and to cause a nuisance to local residents. So, you know, that is my representation to sort of give some conditions, but I am in agreement with James McCann and the conditions that they have supplied, but I do err on the side of caution that we do need to have a look at the conditions about the outside area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bellringer. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for Mr. Bellringer?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Bellringer. Just with regards to your last comment about the conditions from the premises, yeah, and your cautiousness about the nature of the outside space, are there then any additional conditions that you would recommend on top of what's been proposed by Mr. McCann?
Well, one of the conditions is there should be no outdoor regulated entertainment. You know, is there a time that we potentially could be adding on to that to sort of give respite to local residents? Those kind of things I think just need to be explored, and I'm sure that Mr. McCann will comment as well. But, you know, I think just to say there's no outside regulated entertainment, you know, there can still be background, there can still be multiple people out in the back. Like I said, when officers, I personally went at a time when there was an event and a wedding, and there was a large amount of people that, you know, was audible inside a resident's property. You could hear large amount of people speaking and talking in that outside area. And then when you open the door to go outside, you know, it was a wall of noise that, you know, it was quite loud. Obviously, the resident's property is, you know, meters from the outside area. But yeah, I just think there's some sort of exploration that needs to be done on these conditions.
Okay, thank you. And you had the premises been brought to your attention prior to the change of ownership for any noise complaints? I think Ms. Barrett mentioned one complaint in 2016, but has there been anything else into your team prior
No,
to the change?
Not, yeah, we had one report in 2016 and then we've had 55 reports from July last year.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's it for the moment, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Councillor Gunas, do you have any questions for Mr. Bellringer?
No, not at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
I just have one question, Mr. Bellringer. Did I understand you correctly that you, as a council officer, did not collect any evidence of statutory nuisance? If so, what do you mean by statutory nuisance? And is it possible that there was a nuisance at times when you are not on site?
Quite possibly. I did receive videos of sort of, you know, I think there was DIY works being carried out at night time, you know, which I did bring up to the management at the time about that. And, you know, there was I think from their part, there was a bit of lack of control that they were cleaning vents or the air flew at the time. But no, yeah, potentially there was issues there, or, you know, statutory nuisance when we weren't there. We haven't witnessed, you know, loud music inside a resident's property, you know, nothing that we would be able to issue any sort of enforcement notices on.
And how many times did you go on site following a complaint?
I believe officers have been twice. I went once, and I believe officers went once before, I believe.
Thank you. I'll now take questions from the license holder or his representative for Mr. Bellringer. Do you have any questions for Mr. Bellringer?
No, Chair, but I think it's probably something best investigated after I've made my submissions, maybe by asking questions of Mr. Richard Vivian, who is the expert.
Thank you. And do the license holder supporters have questions for Mr. Bellringer? If there are no further thank you. If there are no further questions, I will move to the next supporter of the review, who is Councillor Cathy Brennan. Councillor Brennan, you have 5 minutes that start now.
Thank you. Okay, well, I was contacted by Miss Shield because she and when I went to visit, I went to visit her home. I was very surprised to see that she lives sort of 2 feet or so. Her front door and her living room is 2 feet or so from this open area. And although there's a fence, the fence stops and there's air, basically air, 2 feet of air between her front door and this area, which is used. Now, when I've gone past the pub, there's often advertisements outside on an A board saying outside area open for events and stuff. So it's obviously used quite a lot. I love the pub. I really do. It's a community amenity. Everybody loves this pub. I go to it often. We really value the pub. We don't want to lose the pub. However, I cannot, as the ward councillor, I cannot accept that any residents who live that close, their life is being made impossible. And quite honestly, if I live two feet away from that many people milling around at weddings and such, I don't automatically understand why the wedding speeches, when there's an upstairs area. This is quite a large pub. There's a downstairs area. There's an upstairs area. The downstairs area inside the pub does not disturb Miss Shields. So I don't understand why the speeches for the wedding need to take place outside under the covered area. And I did say in our meeting, why can we not have the speeches upstairs? Because this outside area was originally designated when it was agreed that planning permission was given to use it. There was a specification that no loud music would be there, specifically because of Miss Shields' proximity. And, you know, the idea is that it's a quiet dining area, and I did suggest that they use it as a quiet dining area. I don't want to kill the pub. I want them to have wonderful business. So let's see, I did write some more things down. So that's why the restriction is in place because she's so close. It cannot possibly be intended to have the loud parties. I've heard rowdy singing, recording of rowdy singing. There weren't very many people there, but they were singing rowdily. Now, the strange thing is people don't sing rowdily in the pub. In the pub, it's civilized, certainly. Out there, it was really very rowdy, like darts supporters, and I don't know how Miss Shields could possibly put up with it. There were no complaints previously. Obviously, there have been a lot of complaints recently. That's been highlighted. And the background music, this business about background, and this is fundamental for me, is that the current owners of the pub might say they're only doing background music, but there's an interpretation of background music, and background music for them seems to be too loud when you're that close and you've only got air between the whole house. Their idea of background music is clearly louder than I could not live with constant noise. And I think that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for Councillor Brennan?
No, Chair, thank you. I have no questions.
Thank you. Councillor Gunas, do you have any questions for Councillor Brennan?
No.
Thank you. Could I ask the licence holder or his representative whether he has questions for Councillor Brennan?
No, Chair, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. And could the are they the opponents of the review? Trying to see which wording we are using. The objectors to the review. Would any of them like to ask Councillor Brennan a question? I don't see any raised hands. So I'm going to move on to the final supporter of the review, who is Mr. Paul Eagles. Mr. Eagles, you have 5 minutes to start now.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Una for bringing this matter forward. We live on the other side of the pub to her. So we live on Etheldean, and I'm representing the first 5 houses on Etheldean Avenue, and people also live in the block of flats overlooking the courtyard. Our main issue is the covered courtyard and the lack of planning for that. Over 20 years ago, I spoke at the original planning hearing as a concerned neighbour. The proposal at the time was very clear: to convert what was then a neglected roofless yard into a covered dining area alongside 3 work and living units. This is a quiet residential area, and Haringey assured us that strict conditions would be in place to protect neighbours from noise and disturbance. Permission was granted only for a covered dining area, nothing more. For many years, this arrangement worked. The operators respected the conditions and neighbours had no objections. However, in recent years, those conditions have been repeatedly and deliberately ignored. The yard has shifted from a dining space to a venue for events and functions. My immediate neighbours and I have been really concerned with the increase in noise levels since the last change in ownership. Back in 2002, Haringey specified particular building materials be used because the concertina-shaped roof would amplify sound. This is why noise carries not only to us, the closest neighbours, but also residents much further down Etheldean Avenue, even beyond number 50, halfway down the road. On one occasion, when loud music was disturbing us, my wife and I went over and spoke to Lewis, the manager. I asked him to measure the noise using the pub's own decibel meter. On the yard staircase registered over 80, with peaks in the 90s. We've also been informed that the DJ regularly hired there had been told he could go up to 100 decibels. This is entirely incompatible with a residential setting and directly contradicts the planning conditions. Referring to those original conditions from 2002, and I've included them in the appendix, page 137. The proposal: the space was approved strictly as a covered dining area. Point 6. The covered dining area shall not be used other than as an ancillary use to the Victoria Stakes pub. So it didn't lead to intensification of use and attraction of traffic, as that would be detrimental to the amenities of occupiers of nearby residential. Point 4, no amplified or live music. Despite this, the pub's contract states the music is allowed until 10:30 for people hiring the space, which directly contradicts the planning restriction. I also want to highlight testimony from Ben Abrahams and from the current directors James Watson and Peter MacDonald, including statements submitted to the Lawful Development Certificate. They're on page 139. In these documents, they openly acknowledge a significant number of music breaches over the past 2 years. As long-standing Haringey residents, we believe the Council now has a duty of care to act on these admissions. We therefore request the following. First, the Haringey issues clear, enforceable legal conditions, including a breach of condition notice. These protections were promised when the scheme was approved over 20 years ago, and the Council now has the opportunity to put this right. Secondly, we ask the Licensing Committee to insert 4 new conditions. A reinstatement that the yard is strictly a covered dining area. A prohibition on all amplified sound and speakers, not just music. A ban on smoking on the first floor fire escape, ensuring that that fire door is not used and kept open. Finally, a regulation preventing the covered dining area from being hired out by third parties or used for weddings or private functions. It should be for the pub dining area. Thirdly, given the operator's own admissions, along with private and council evidence, Haringey should consider what further legal action is appropriate against Ben Abrahams, James Watson and Peter MacDonald for knowingly disregarding those planning controls. The Victoria Stakes has operated successfully for more than a century as a pub and dining room. There is no reason it cannot continue to do so, legally, responsibly, and in harmony with its neighbours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eagles. I just have one question. I'm not sure who that was. So I just have one question for Mr. Eagles before I go to my fellow councillors. I just want to ask, you listed 4 conditions. I did not catch the second one. Could you repeat just for my benefit what the second condition was?
It's a prohibition on all amplified sound and speakers, not just the one at the moment that says no live or amplified music. Really, they shouldn't have any sound systems there because the noise carries too far. And it is, yeah, it's meant to be a dining area.
Thank you, Mr. Eagles. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for Mr. Eagles?
I did, but he actually answered it by putting forward his own conditions. I just wanted to check, Mr. Eagles, you'll have seen the proposed conditions from Mr. McCann on page 13 and 14 of the supplementary. I think where, and I'd just like to get to your clarification. Have you had a chance to review those?
There were like 200 pages, so I think what I would need to do is try and open it up now and see specifically what their proposals are.
Okay, well.
Do you have the page number, Councillor Da Costa?
Yes, it's additional pack 2, page 13 and 14.
Okay.
Because what I just wanted to ask is you've
that you wanted to highlight from now.
Well, what I wanted to get clarification on is if you had read them. I think your 4th condition would go significantly further than the conditions proposed by Mr. McCann, which is no private events in the rear. So just to confirm, you would want a condition that there were no private events in the rear that's used simply as a dining area for the pub, rather than as an event space.
Myself and the neighbours all agreed it was because we were there 20 years ago and permission was granted as a dining area and it's being used as an event space. It was never meant to be an event space.
Okay.
And the planning is very clear on that.
And then you mentioned no smoking on the fire escape. Is that a designated smoking area, or are people smoking there and not permitted to? Sorry.
I don't know, but like on occasions when we've been disturbed by noise, mostly our issues on this side are from the covered yard. But if there is an event on the first floor, we wouldn't necessarily hear it if it weren't for the fact that the fire doors are propped open with a fire extinguisher, and then the noise is just coming straight through to us. when that happens, it's as if the music is being played in the covered yard. And I don't know if you've been on site, but the shape of the roof is a concertina. So it just amplifies the sound out. And that's the issue. The door's been kept open, but even when they got a DJ or something in there, and the door's opening and closing because people are smoking and they're coming in and out, the door's open, and that's often when the noise comes through.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions from me, Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Eagles.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Councillor Gunas, do you have any questions for Mr. Eagles?
Yeah, just a very quick question, maybe like some sort of clarification. Mr. Eagles, you mentioned that basically, I mean, it was the planning agreement of the planning condition of the previous application, like when it was initially granted. And are you saying that the previous owner or the previous business, the previous owner, under the management of the previous owner, none of those conditions were broken, but it's only happened, all of it, under the new management since the change of the ownership? Have I
don't know when the Haringey sort of granted a wedding license to the site, and I don't know when that came in place, but we definitely weren't affected so badly in the past. It was for many years used as a dining area only. But I do know, because I have complained myself to the council, not in the last few years, and it was always the council said, oh, you know, phone up. There was a number to speak to a noise officer, but there isn't a phone line anymore to actually report noise. So I have complained in the past, but it's definitely gotten worse now. And there were times when I know the pub when the council wrote to the pub to say that they're not allowed background music in the covered yard, and the council contacted the pub to let them know that. But it doesn't seem that they really enforced it at all. They would just give them a wink and say, oh, you know, you shouldn't have that.
Thank you, Mr. Eagles. Any further questions, Councillor Gunas?
No.
Thank you. Does the licence holder or his representative have questions for Mr. Eagles?
Chair, I don't have any questions, but I'll address his points for the beginning of my submissions.
Thank you. Do the objectors to the review have any questions for Mr. Eagles? No. Then in that case, we are going to turn to Mr. McCann. And since the supporters of the licence holder have given up their time, with the exception of Mr. Reid, who has 5 minutes, you have 15 minutes for your representation, which starts now.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll try to respond to all the points raised, but I've got very bad handwriting. If I miss anything, please ask me the appropriate question. I'll happily supply the answer. Can I begin by saying that this is a licensing hearing, not a planning hearing? As your legal advisor will no doubt explain if required, planning is not relevant to what we're talking about today. In terms of talking about breaching conditions, when it comes to we're not breaching conditions. There isn't a condition on the premises license relating to amplified noise outside. So just to make that abundantly clear, we have applied, when it came to our attention, there are these old conditions on the planning permission. We've applied for certificate of lawful use because we say, and we've got witness statement evidence to confirm, that we've had amplified music in the backyard for a continuous period of over 10 years. So I'm not proposing something about planning because this is a licensing matter. Chair, I'm not going to repeat all the points I've made in my written submissions. They're at page 113 of a supplemental report. The appendices are in a slightly strange order. They're a bit of a mishmash, some have been put behind, some are afterwards, but all the information is in there. And if there's any queries, confusions, I urge you and your colleagues just to flick through those when you're deliberating. But I'd like to make 7 basic points. So the first point is that the impression's been given that we've not been willing to engage, we've been standoffish. And I would say that this is incorrect. If you look at Lewis Johnson's witness statement, we have appended all his emails to the applicant. And on numerous occasions, he said, please, can we meet up? Can we meet in person? Can we chat about this? He's been very open, very willing to have a discussion. Chair, I act on behalf of both applicants and respondents' reviews, and often the biggest issue is the operator of a licensed premises has stuck their head in the sand, and this is not the case here. He's also bumped into the applicant in the street and had conversations there, so he's not gone to ground whatsoever. Now, after the application was made, we did have a brief meeting. Unfortunately, that was on Teams again rather than in person. I do think it'd be very useful in future if we could actually meet on site. You'll see, Lewis, if his picture appears, he's not an ogre. He's a very friendly guy, and he's not, I have to say, particularly intimidating, I wouldn't have thought. And he'd be very happy to chat with the applicant. But we've sent those conditions across, and I'm really pleased that I think that she is happy with the conditions we've proffered. I understand her concern that she wants these conditions to be enforceable. Now, Chair, you and your colleagues will be aware of this, but I don't expect other people will be, because licensing is a very niche, specialised area. But conditions, once placed on a licence, following a review or following a variation, they're not just advisory, they're not actually like planning that has to be enforced against. If you breach a licensing condition, it's a criminal offence, and you can be prosecuted and receive a large fine. So they are serious matters, but we've proffered those conditions and we're happy to have them placed on the licence. Now, we do accept that there have been some failings. We're not perfect. We're not coming to here saying we've done nothing wrong at all. There have been some issues, but we have listened to the concerns raised and we've already taken the appropriate steps. For example, and I'll just give some random examples that have been raised today. The first floor has a fire escape. And before Lewis was the chef patron, some people occasionally would open up the fire escape and think, oh, I can smoke out there. That's not the case. That door is kept closed at all times, and there's a big sign saying for emergency use only, and we're happy to have that conditioned. There's, I believe, 2 occasions when, fortunately, due to a staff overlooking it, the lights were kept on all night. We've now changed that. We put on a timer and we've proffered a condition appropriately. There's reference to the microphone, the portable speaker. We've got one very small portable speaker for speeches, and we've got another speaker, only one speaker, that's used for background music now in the garden. The request was to move that speaker without suggestion, and we've done that. Those issues with an extract, that happens in any licensed premises. Unfortunately, things go wrong. I understand that has been fixed. So we have already addressed the concerns, but since the review application was made, we sought expert advice. And you'll see that Mr. Vivian has done a detailed report. He's made some suggestions about how the premises operate, in particular to do with music. And we're happy to accept all his suggestions and have a noise management policy. Other conditions, which I think the ones that would be most interesting, most beneficial to the applicant, is the one that will only have background music in the covered yard. Now, just to explain what background music is, it's not regulated, so it doesn't actually require a premises license. Back in 2012, the Live Music Act came in, and any premises was allowed to have live recorded music up to 11 p.m. regardless. But even before that, any premises could be a post office, it could be a shop, it's allowed incidental music. The 2 main tests of that is, do I have to raise my voice to be heard? And is it the focus of whilst we're actually there? So we're happy for you to strip away our rights given to us in 2012 by the Live Music Act and only have background music. And any environmental health officer, any enforcement officer who comes to the premises will know the difference between regulated and background music. And also we've got Richard Vivian's suggestions in terms of the noise limiters, which we will adopt to ensure that even if you have a trigger happy member of staff, they can't override that system and make the music in the backyard, which is covered, regulated. Our third point is that we don't accept the operation of the premises is substantially different now than under the previous ownership. Ben is on this call. He's a well-loved member of the local community. We paid him a considerable amount of money to acquire the premises, but he's got no financial interest in being here today. But he is a regular pub. He pops in all the time to use it, and he's well aware, being experienced operator, of how he ran the pub and how the pub is ran now. And he's confirmed that if anything, in his time, the use of the covered backyard area is more intense and the music louder. And this is supported by representations made by the 186 old who made representations, and thank you for those being here today support us, and also from emails we've seen from the applicant where she has actually made complaints before the complaint or respondent took over. My fourth point is to do with public nuisance, and this is a bit more nuanced, Chair. So public nuisance doesn't mean there can't be any noise whatsoever. Now, it's been confirmed by Mr. Bellringer that there hasn't been statutory noise nuisance. Otherwise, quite right, he would have served a noise abatement notice. And the Section 182 guidance states the licensing authorities should focus on the effect the licensing activities have in the area around the premises, which may be disproportionate or unreasonable. Now, what is disproportionate and unreasonable depends upon the facts. So, what are the facts here? We have a coaching inn that's been in situ for well over 100 years on a busy road intersection in a mixed-use area with these live-work units which were constructed relatively recently, cheap by jowl, to a pub garden being there for well over 100 years. So no matter how well we run the premises, it's inevitable there's going to be an element of noise from staff closing, from staff opening. It could be a patron laughs too loudly over their dinner. That doesn't mean that it is public nuisance. And again, the fact that the applicant has made numerous complaints, and I think the number of complaints are 55. I'm not sure they've all come from the applicant, but I would suggest that many have come from her. Again, just by making a complaint, that's not evidence of public nuisance. The officers have come out and not witnessed any public nuisance when they've been on site. We've had 2 very amicable meetings with them. We have seen video snapshots. Now, this premises is videoed constantly. Lewis has been videoed in his own private apartment. And we say that if you video a premises constantly, you'll see odd incidents of maybe a swear word, somebody's had a glass of wine too many, etc. But that doesn't mean that every licensed premises in Milan should be reviewed and have their licenses curtailed. Now, if you look at Richard Vivian's main report and supplemental report, he confirms there's no evidence of public nuisance, and he also confirms, as I've said, that background music is not a licensed activity. Now, analysis of videos taken on a technical area, but Richard will no doubt assist you further if you have any queries in that regard. He's highly experienced, he's given evidence for committees, magistrates, and high courts across the country for both operators and also local residents. The 5th point is that we haven't got all the statutory authority joining this review. Now, a lot of reviews are actually brought by statutory authorities themselves. It's not the case here, nor have we any representations from the licensing authority or the police. And also, you'll see that the representation of Mr. Bellringer, it is nuanced. Often when you have a nuisance premises, the EHO is champing at the bit to ensure that premises either revoked, license revoked, or heavily curtailed. That's not the case here. Just to confirm with Mr. Bellringer, we are happy to have no regulated music at all outside, and also noise limiters put in place as per Mr. Vivian's report and the noise management plan. In terms of my 6th point, I'm getting there, Chair, we have overwhelming support, 186 representations in favour, as opposed to, I think, 7 or 8 supporting review. That is almost unprecedented, and we're very grateful to everybody who supported us and attended tonight. Now, those representations, Chair, they're not simply I love going for premises. I had a lovely evening meal there. It's super. The staff are very kind. Some do say that, but also many who live close by and have properties overlooking the premises confirm that there hasn't been any public nuisance and they haven't witnessed any crime and disorder. And Chair, my final point is that financial considerations have always been important in licensing, but they're now key. Given the current extremely difficult trading conditions for pubs, it's all over the news at the moment. The government has fortunately decided that financial decisions or concerns should come to the fore, and we've got the revised Section 182 guidance and the recent licensing framework, which is mentioned in my written submissions. The framework states that licensing must support broad ambitions, including business investment and growth and local jobs. And James Watson, he's here today in his witness statement, he explains the dire consequences of cutting the hours of a covered backyard, would effectively remove that dinner service altogether, and also limiting the playing of background incidental music. And if such measures are taken, we fear the pub will not be viable, and that will mean it's been boarded up with a loss of 17 direct jobs. Chair, I'll just finish off by explaining, not for your benefit, but for everything else, that licensing subcommittees, they're quasi-judicial, and the guidance states that authorities' determination should be evidence-based, justified as being appropriate for promotion of licensing objectives and proportionate in terms of what it's intended to achieve. Therefore, Chair, we ask that you be proportionate and appropriate by placing the conditions we've proffered on the licence. They're legally enforceable, they're tight, and I believe they go into, I think, the whole way, according to the applicant, to addressing her concerns. And finally, can I just add, no matter what the decision is today, please can we say to the applicant, if there's any concerns, you want to chat, pick up the phone, meet for a coffee, bring a friend, if you can, so bring a local councillor. We're not ogres, we're very happy to chat. And I would say, in my submission, that a lot of issues can be sorted just by having a coffee and talking things through. Chair, can I ask the people on the call, in terms of our clients, who've got anything they want me to add or anything they want to add?
No, nothing to add.
Right, Chair, I'll leave it there. Not sure how long I've been, but that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. So that was 14 minutes. So if Mr. Reid would like to speak for 6 minutes, I will allow him to do so. So, Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for the license holders representative?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions, if I may. Oh, where is Mr. McCann? I think he's there. He is. He's back again. Okay. So I've got a couple of questions. In the first instance, one of the things that Ms. Shields mentioned is that there has been some inconsistencies around a regular contact point, or there's been a large number of staff turnover. So I want to, you mentioned just in your last bit of your representation that you're happy for local residents to reach out to the premises. Will you then have a single named individual or specific email address or phone number for people to reach out to, which will be monitored during operating hours, which residents know they can then happily reach out to?
Of course, yeah, definitely, Chair. Of course, good idea.
Not
Chair. Sorry, I've elevated you. Sorry.
Don't worry. I was going to keep quiet. I don't want to have a coup during this hearing. You mentioned the number of complaints and the number of supporters, of course, as well, and the number of complaints not necessarily being determinative. Would you, however, agree that a sustained pattern of complaints is still relevant to a licensing subcommittee insofar as it indicates where management controls may need to be strengthened?
Chair, I would say that complaints that are substantiated.
You've elevated me again once again.
Chair, can't help it. Chair. Dear Councillor, I would say if the complaints are substantiated, yes, but if they're not necessarily.
Can you explain a little bit about the noise management policy? How does the noise management policy operate day to day, and how will staff be trained in ensuring it's implemented during events and ongoing operations?
Yeah, so in terms of the training, this is something that's read by Lewis, but would it help, because a lot of it's actually quite technical in terms of a noise management policy, would it help if I asked Richard to explain the technical overrides that are in place to ensure that a member of staff can't get trigger happy and start turning up the music? Would that assist?
If it's okay with the chair, I'd be happy for that.
Yes, I'm happy to hear that.
Great, thanks.
Richard?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so for everybody's benefit, the noise management policy is in the supplemental bundle 1, page 33. And here I present a selection of best practice controls for a licensed premises. So we have a load of bullet points of the right things to do in this space. And that includes a lot of controls for internal spaces, which aren't the subject of this review, but just generally making sure that best practice is in place at the premises. And of course, the controls that Mr. McCann has already mentioned on the sound system. So a limiter on the sound system so that a maximum level cannot be exceeded. So these are all good and recognised best practice points. That the noise management policy, and it says this in my noise impact assessment and the recommendations that I make, that becomes part of staff training. So every new start on the team goes through the noise management policy, as you know, new starts in the kitchen would go through the food hygiene policy and all these things. It's an operational document and it's a dynamic document as well. So if something changes, you know, perhaps something changes about where the refuse is collected or what times bottling out happens, then everybody sits down and we revise the noise management policy, very often with the engagement of your environmental health officer, your own expert on noise. So it's an important document. It's often overlooked. There are plenty of premises that don't have them, but by putting it in place and indeed by conditioning it, saying we must have a noise management policy, we ensure that there's best practice properly documented, that's regularly updated for the premises, and in cooperation with your own EHO.
And Lewis, just so we have it on the record, can you confirm that you'll be providing this training? If it's not you, it'll be the assistant manager or somebody in a managerial role. And if they don't comply with it, there could be employment consequences.
Yeah, that's right. It'll be coming from me directly.
Thank you.
Can I then, as Lewis, as Mr. Johnson's on the call, how will you embed that? Obviously, you mentioned there's employment consequences if people don't follow the policy, but how are you going to ensure that your members are briefed on the policy and actually, you know, it's great to have a policy, but as we all know in work, we've got lots of policies, and I'm currently going through an ISO accreditation for one of my clients, and I've written lots of policies. It's just how do you enact them? So how will you be ensuring your team follow the policies that you're putting in place?
Yes, so when a new member of staff is onboarded, they sit down with me first and we go through everything and the rules and regulations. And I actually live on site, so I'm here quite regularly to monitor what goes on, especially with this situation. So it's something that we are taking seriously with it.
Okay. And in terms of, I was about to call you chair again, sorry, councillor, if it would assist, and I'm not taking instructions on this, but I'm sure my clients would be amenable to have a condition whereby training has to be updated after a certain amount of time. Because I agree that you can train somebody, but if it's a year later, memory can fade.
Yeah, and yeah, that is a valid point. I want to talk a little bit about complaints management. So if a complaint is raised during trading hours, what's the expected response time and escalation process?
So in terms of the complaints that have been made to Lewis, you'll see he's actually responded extremely quickly. It's been the day or the next day, even when he's actually been on holiday, he's actually conveyed the message. Bearing in mind that when I email people, I tend to get no response whatsoever. I think that's extremely good timing, and certainly that is the what he expects from his member of staff. So, because Lewis is actually on site, the chef patron lives on site, all complaints come directly to him, or if he's away, the acting manager.
Okay. One condition that we've had in the past at other premises is asking premises to potentially organise residents' meetings on a regular or semi-regular basis. Would this be something you'd be interested in doing sort of once a quarter, having a public meeting for local residents to come to express concerns, thoughts, comments, etc.
Chair, I'm not going to take instructions, but I think that sounds sensible. I'm going to say yes to that. I'm sure they'd be willing to do it.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's actually quite a good idea just to get people in anyway for a chat. So it's quite nice to meet your neighbours. So.
Okay, so back to the real chair. That's all my questions.
Oh,
thank you.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Councillor Gunas, do you have any questions for Mr. McCann?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gunas. I just have one question for you, Mr. McCann. So earlier on, Mr. Eagles listed 4 conditions that he and his neighbours think it would be appropriate to add to your the premises license. Could you explain? Are there any of these conditions that you would be willing to accept? Are there any you disagree with? And if you disagree, why?
The conditions asked for, they were slightly overlapping with planning. I believe that Mr. Eagles didn't want any music in the backyard covered area. We're saying no regulated music, so it's only very low level background. I believe that Mr. Eagles want to ensure that nobody smoked on the fire escape on the first floor, and that's covered by the second condition that's proffered. In terms of having events, we proffer condition that will actually give written notice for any pre-booked event for only over 50 people to ensure that people are notified. I was trying to write down all the conditions, but I think, have I covered everything that he asked for? I think the conditions that we've actually proffered cover some of his concerns, and they're the ones that we would like the committee to adopt, as opposed to any different wording of conditions.
Thank you. Could you clarify that point around 50 people at events?
I can read the condition out.
Yes, please.
The premises license holder shall give notice in writing of any pre-booked event for over 50 people in the backyard to any local resident for request to be notified.
And what is the purpose of giving notice?
So people aren't taken by surprise if there is a wedding and a wake. And if they have any concerns about how it's going to take place or operate, they can phone and discuss it or email us, and we can make adaptations to the plan of a proposal as necessary.
Thank you. Councillor Da Costa, do you want to come in again?
Yes, just on that, and thank you, Chair, for raising that one. Actually, you state within that condition, you state to written notification to any local residents. You may not have this information now, but do you have sort of a general vicinity area that you'd put this notice out to, just so ensure it covers the appropriate area?
Yes, I mean, Chair, obviously people who have made a representation are able to obtain or email in to your council officer saying they want to be notified, or they can just email the premises directly. Just please keep us notified of any future events. We're very happy. We can put a notice up as well, if required.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Bellringer, do you have any questions for Mr. McCann?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Shield, do you have any questions for Mr. McCann?
I would like to say that assurances are welcome. However, I think conditions that are legally binding would give more predictability and comfort to residents. And also I do wish to state that I have reached out.
Miss Shield, at this point in the meeting, you're only allowed to ask questions. Do you have any questions for Mr. McCann?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Shield. Councillor Brennan, do you have any questions for Mr. McCann?
I actually do. So, Mr. McCann, when you say that you think conditions have not changed, how do you explain the 55 complaints that have been made since mid-25? 2025. So why do you think they've been made? And when you say that you refer to substantiated complaints, what do you consider all the videos and recordings that have been submitted to be? If you don't say that's not substantiation, then I presume complaints simply can't be substantiated. I don't understand that. That's the first complaint. That's my first question. And then my
Shall
second
we,
question.
Councillor Brennan, shall we allow Mr. McCann to answer this question, and then I'll come back to your second question.
Okay.
Mr. McCann?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of why there have been more complaints now, that's not something we can judge. All we can do is explain that the operation of premises has not changed substantially in the last 10 years. If anything, the number of events of live music has gone down. In terms of the videos taken, it is explained in detail in Mr. Vivian's supplemental report that recordings taken with an iPhone are not accurate. It's a very technical area. Please read the report. That does explain everything. Yes, I mean, it's in terms of report taken with an iPhone with the iPhone put out of a window, etc., is not indicative of public nuisance, which is taken when people are actually inside their premises, lying in bed, etc. But by all means, Richard, Vivian, if you want to chip in and answer that question more eloquently, please do.
Yes, Councillor Brennan. Yes, my report is in Supplemental Agenda 2, starts on page 7, and it explains what we do is we look at one of the recordings. In fact, that very last one, the one that you forwarded, I believe, from the 29th of December. The recording was taken in an area above the canopied roof. Now, there are no residential balconies there. There's no residential external amenity space. I mean, from our investigation, this is a live-work unit. So, you know, this is it's a slightly odd thing, but I do explain that in my noise impact assessment of you know why live-work units were often shoehorned in this era of development into situations like this. But going specifically on that recording. Somebody's holding a phone out of a window above the roof canopy and filming the guests of the pub in having their private dining space and whatever. Now, that's not representative of the noise level that's inside somebody's bedroom or inside somebody's living room. We have no... I mean, there's a substantial amount of recordings here, but I didn't see any that are filmed inside the property where somebody would normally be resting or sleeping. So it's very difficult to gauge what's being said here. I mean, you know, there will be noise in the pub beer garden. There will be noise as there would be in a pub beer garden anywhere. But what's really important is that the noise level that the residents experience within their home, within the bedrooms, within living rooms where they may wish to rest and sleep, is at an acceptable level that's not a statutory nuisance and in licensing terms, not a public nuisance. Now, these complaints, these 55 complaints, will have obviously triggered a complaint investigation from Mr. Bellringer. Mr. Bellringer's been to site, and Mr. Bellringer says he's been to site when there's been a large wedding reception there, and there's been noise, but it's not a level that's a statutory nuisance that's materially interfering with people inside their property. It may be noise that's in the walkway. It may be noise that people would hear as they go to their front door and open their front door, but it's not noise that's a material interference to somebody being inside their property. And we've got no evidence to say ever that that's the case. And
also, yeah. Sorry, Richard, carry on.
And also, you know, Haringey's, you know, well resourced. It has its noise app too, you know. So noise app as a effectively a triage system for Mr. Bellringer and his colleagues. To assess, you know, how, you know, does this need further investigation? So there's all the opportunity, there's the 55 complaints, there's the use of the noise app, which Ms. Shield has explained. None of this has resulted in in an officer being able to substantiate a nuisance.
So, well, I would just add that when Lewis first took over, there was an incident, for example, whereby somebody took control of the sound system. Now, that's not going to be possible in the future because we've proffered the conditions we've proffered, and specifically, we are offering to remove the relaxation we have pursuant to the Live Music Act of having regulated live and recorded music. That is a massive step. So we can only have that quiet background music going forward. So I think regardless of what issues were previously, with it being background music only, that's at a very low level.
Can I come back on my question?
Yes, could you ask your second question, Councillor Brennan?
Well, I've got to come back on that question on one thing. I can see Una's got her finger up. I've seen these recordings that are supplied. I can see the windows. You can see the windows. They're clearly from inside the house.
Councillor Brennan, at this point, it's not time to make interventions. You're only allowed to ask questions. Could you ask a question, please?
Yes, I did have a further question on what oh yes, you say quiet background music, so can it be would you add that word in then, please? Quiet, because you just say background music. Will you add in quiet?
Definitely not, unfortunately, because it's completely unenforceable.
No, that says everything.
So no, what is enforceable is removing live and recorded music and having background music only. That is definitely enforceable because that's not licensed activity. But quiet doesn't mean it. Conditions, because it's a criminal offence of breach of condition, they have to be specific and they have to be enforceable. And you'll be aware, committee, that all the guidance says you can't have conditions saying people be quiet. You can't have conditions saying it will be well run. That's far too wishy-washy. And I think from Mr. Bellring's perspective, he'd be banging his head against a brick wall if he saw that on a licence, because I think, where does it stand with me? I don't know what quiet actually means in this situation.
My second
Mr.
question is a different question, Anna. My second question was simply when you say that you're going to put the notice out to inform residents when you're having events of over 50 people, why? Is that because you know you'll disturb people? I mean, if not, why?
I think so. I think I might have already answered this when I answered a question from Councillor Da Costa. It's to give people notice of what's going on. So if they have any queries about the event,
why?
or sorry, if they want to suggest any changes to it or ask that setup takes place at a certain time, they can do so. If it's possible to adapt the running of the event in order to ease any concerns, we can do that.
So you know that the events will disturb. That means.
And I don't accept that.
You acknowledge that the events will disturb people. That's the thing.
That's not what I'm saying, but yeah.
Councillor Brennan, at this stage, you can only ask questions and not make statements. Mr. Eagles, would you like to ask questions to Mr. McCann?
Yeah, sure. Can I make a quick clarification?
No, at this stage, we can only take questions.
Niall, when you were explaining earlier about planning regulations and licensing regulations being different, maybe you can explain to me what gives you the right to ignore existing planning conditions for the covered yard?
Chair, I'm happy to answer it, but I don't think I should be talking about planning matters in a licensing committee. Perhaps your legal advisor could advise.
I would say that it's a sign of your behaviour.
I'm really sorry, Mr. Eagles. You can't make statements at this point in the meeting. We do have to follow procedure in this meeting. We do have a legal officer on the call. Could you give us some advice on whether this question, on whether we can take this question in this meeting?
I don't think I think I agree with Mr. McCann. I think the planning matters are for planning hearings, and this is a licensing application. They aren't the same, unfortunately, even though they appear to be interchangeable to some people.
Thank you, Ms. Fingleton. Mr. Eagles, do you have any other questions for Mr. McCann?
For the large events, those ones over 50 people, but apparently they go up to 200 people. Where do you expect the clients to park?
Again, this is not something that's been raised in the initial representation, and parking is a planning issue. We've been having events for well over 10 years. If people park illegally, that's covered by other legislation. If I understand that lots of people will walk or use public transport. This is not an application for a new license, so I'm not quite sure much more I can say in terms of an answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Eagles, do you have further questions?
Did the live and work units, were they built at the same time as the covered roof?
I don't, again, this is what, 20 odd years ago. I don't think I can answer that question with any degree of certainty.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. Any further questions, Mr. Eagles?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wyckoff-Smith, do you have a question for Mr. McCann?
Yes, I'd just like to start by saying I feel like we've discussed the music has been raised and things
I'm
like
really
weddings.
sorry,
But
Ms.
hold on, my
Wyckoff-Smith.
question is, I've got my question. My question is, wakes or post-funeral events tend to have a greater flux of people that are less predictable numbers of people that can come. And I wanted to know how the Victoria Stakes management handles the influx of people that are coming to events like that when it can be a less controlled number and can often impact the neighborhood in terms of noise. Just without music aside, just the sheer volume of people can create quite a loud event.
I think there's always going to be quieter and busier times of the year. Lewis, in terms of when you know it's going to be busy, presume that you just have more staff on to actually supervise. I think that's the straightforward answer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Have more
think
staff, make sure there's more senior staff involved as well.
I think the question I'm really trying to say is like, how do you know how many people are actually coming into that event and controlling that the numbers are, you know, in a managed way so that it doesn't become an incredibly loud and overcrowded event. Whereas like with a wedding, the people are obviously RSVPing, they know they're going to be 75 people, they're going to be 100 people. But with a wake, often it's like, please, you know, come back to the Victoria Stakes afterwards and we'd love to have you. So there's sort of a bit more of there's less predictable numbers, and that can become quite a loud event. In fact, one of the loudest events that has happened in the Victoria Stakes recently has been a post-funeral event or a wake, or, you know, I don't know the exact specifics, but I think that's, you know, that is another consideration, and there needs to be a way that can somehow be monitored and regulated and
Ms. Wyckoff, again, we need to stick to questions. Mr. McCann?
Can I answer this?
Yeah, well, do you want to chip in and then you can add, in terms of any event like a wake, it is catered. We have to buy relevant food in. We liaise with the relatives of the deceased, and we have a good idea of who's going to attend. Won't be quite as accurate for a wedding, but we have a very good idea. Lewis, is there anything more you want to add?
Yeah, any event that people are hiring out, whether it's the yard or the dining room, it's all pre-ordered numbers, and it's paid for by the head, unless it's just a drinks reception, which is still, you know, they have canapes with that, so we know how many people are coming, and then we can monitor how many people are in the downstairs area, upstairs, outside. It's very easily controlled.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Wyckoff-Smith, do you have further questions?
Nope, that's fine.
Thank you. Ms. Shield, do you have another question to ask Mr. McCann?
Yes, I do. Mr. McCann, how can you prove that video on the 29th of December was not taken from inside the house when the windows are clearly visible?
I'm going to throw this one to Mr. Vivian. He's going to throw it back to me. No, he's not.
No, that's fine. Well, the view is an overhead view through the roof space. The point of this, and for everybody's benefit, this is Supplemental Agenda 2, page 7. In figure 1 there, we show that the video would have to have been filmed at some position vertically above those windows to look down onto that table. So and regardless of where it's filmed from, there is then the very detailed analysis of the soundtrack. Now, the sound is recorded at a very low level. In our studio facility here, we've boosted it. We've then analysed it. There's this very strange artifact where it's paused momentarily. There's a whole load of irregularities about this that and then a detailed explanation of why that can't be submitted in terms of evidence. We can say that that's a view. We can say that there is some evidence of some sound on it, but we can't take anything further from that for all the detail that's given in that report. Now, there is the noise app, as I've said, and there is, of course, Mr. Bellringer's own expertise. So of the 55 complaints that have been made, clearly that is something that Mr. Bellringer will investigate. And Mr. Bellringer is the council's own noise expert. Mr. Bellringer is the person who is authorised to assess whether something is a statutory nuisance or not. And in his investigation, he has found no statutory nuisance.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan, do you have a question for Mr. McCann?
Yes, I do. I have a question for Mr. McCann and Mr. Richard Vivian. Do you know how close the upstairs windows of Miss Una Shiel is to the area? Do you know? Have you looked? That's one question. The second is, how do you know that all the recordings were taken by holding a phone outside the window when one can clearly see a glass pane shown in all the videos? How do you know that that glass pane is not the window inside from the house and the video is being taken from inside the house, as Miss Shiel says? How are you proving that that is not the case?
Yes, we have been to the site. I've been to the site numerous times. I think, Richard, you've probably already answered the second point, haven't you?
Yes, I have. So yes, the answer to the first question is yes, and the answer to the second question is the measurements on a mobile phone cannot be submitted as evidence of a statutory nuisance. We can't calibrate and quantify it, and I said that earlier, and that's all detailed in the supplemental agenda, and I hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Ms. Shiel, do you have a question for Mr. McCann? You're on mute, Ms. Shiel.
I have a question for Mr. Vivian. Have you visited the site? Have any of these large events been taken into account when you created your noise report? I'm asking about the conditions when you wrote the noise report and the time of year, and whether or not there was a large event taking place at the same time.
All the evidence is presented in my noise impact assessment of my site visit and the date of the site visit. And that's here to assist the committee. Now, we rely on the council's own noise expert, Mr. Bellringer, who has visited the site during an event. He gave that in his submissions earlier, that he went there for a very large wedding event.
But can I ask if you are the independent consultant and Mr. Bellringer is the senior noise officer for Haringey Council, there wouldn't necessarily be any overlap between the two roles. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm an independent acoustic consultant. I give expert evidence in licensing planning committees and in the courts. I'm not employed by the council.
And finally, I believe the date of the report was the 16th of December 2025.
That's correct.
Can you tell me how many patrons were in the covered dining area at the time you visited and took the photograph?
No, there are no patrons. There are photographs in there of the empty covered dining area. The purpose
Okay.
of the site visit was to assist the committee in terms of this hearing by producing some expert evidence on the layout of the properties, and that's why it's all fully documented.
But just to be clear, Rich is an independent expert, but he liaises regularly with environmental health officers up and down the country.
But not Haringey Council, independent, and then the report was commissioned by the Victoria Stakes representatives, just so I'm clear.
So Richard is an independent expert. He gives evidence throughout committees and courts across the land. He is engaged by us, but he was independent. If he's not, he wouldn't be in his job for very long, because he'd very quickly get discredited and not used by either operators or residents.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. I'm now going to take a representation from Mr. Reid. Mr. Reid, you have 6 minutes.
Hi there, good evening. Thank you very much. I didn't plan on speaking this evening, so excuse my notes, which are slightly rushed, and I'm sure I won't be 6 minutes, but I do want to say on behalf of the pub, or not on behalf of the pub, I'm completely independent, but a regular at the pub, that, you know, it's at the heart of the community. Both my kids had jobs there. I've attended many events there. I've organised events there in the dining room upstairs. I've had lots of meals in the covered yard, and I can see, hopefully, see a lot of things from both sides. A couple of years ago, I saw the pub under the previous owners start to be, you know, extremely rigorous about sound levels upstairs, with a sound monitor, which was part of the pack there, the decibel meter, which is rigorously enforced. And also, you know, I've seen the bar staff, the managers rigorously enforce the access to the fire escape and prevent access to the fire escape, which one of the neighbours quite rightly recognised used to be used for a bit of a smoking area, but I think that stopped. Look, I've never witnessed any public nuisance there, never any crime or disorder, which I know is a big part of what you know, this committee can look at. But I'm glad to say that that's not part of this whatsoever. And the old management took a great pride in the relationship with the local community, and that's what helped the pub be really, really successful. And I think, you know, partly because of those relationships, issues surrounding sound in particular, and generally being a good neighbour, got sorted out very fast. They were aired and they were diffused, perhaps because of access to the owner and landlord. Clearly, there's been you know, 55 complaints, you know, a long log, which has been presented as part of this testimony today. And local residents are, or some local residents are clearly very angry and very upset. And if their lives are being, you know, curtailed so much by what's going on there, then fair enough. But I am also, you know, impressed with what I've heard in terms of the noise management policy, adding strict conditions in from the pub as well. And so I'm, you know, I think I'm bound to say I'm all in favour of those noise limiters and those restrictions. I would like the committee to consider, though, that the devil is in the detail. You know, we can't define what quiet is, and so there will be, you know, need to have a lot of specifics. There's no amplified sound outside. What about sport on TV? In the past, the pub has again been at the heart of the community by putting World Cup matches on, and obviously there's volume on the TV. So whether the limits that I think the pub are willing to talk about are specific sound levels outside in the courtyard or inside in someone's house, that's not for me to decide. That's for the committees to decide. But I think that sort of specificity is probably what is required. But what I did want to say, and why I wrote my note in the first place, was just to, you know, to remind the committee of the role that the pub does play in the local community. By complete coincidence, I was there on Tuesday night. There was loads of people going in to do a art class upstairs, as one of the random things that the pub does on a Tuesday night. So look, there may well need to be more formal restrictions. Now, whether they are planning restrictions or licensing restrictions, I'll leave that to the experts to sort out. As far as I'm concerned, there's been a pub there for 100 years. And part of a landlord's role should be to try and maintain brilliant relationships with the local community. And I would love to see the licensing committee to maintain the license for the pub. Yes, to put some restrictions on it if required. Would love to for all sides to find a way to bring back a more neighbourly approach and take consideration of everyone else's feelings and how they're living their lives. But what I would like to say, and I generally don't know whether it's in this committee's power or consideration today to stop the licence, but I would argue and support the pub and maintain that the pub should have a licence. Yes, there may well need to be more restrictions and a compromise reached on future behaviour. But yeah, what I'd like to say is that I like having the pub there. I'm a big fan of it. It's generally very well run, maybe with a few tweaks and guidance. It could be run even better for the next 10, 100 years as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. So we'll now take questions for Mr. Reid. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for Mr. Reid?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gunas, do you have any questions for Mr. Reid?
No, thank you.
Ms. Shield, do you have any questions for Mr. Reid? Yeah. Councillor Brennan, do you have a question for Mr. Reid?
I don't think so, thank you.
No. Mr. Bellringer, do you have a question for Mr. Reid?
No, Chair.
No. And Mr. Eagles, do you have a question for Mr. Reid?
Yes, Chris, you mentioned that the previous operators used to have a sound monitor to measure the noise. Do you know how did that change when the new operators came in?
It's still there in the top bar, and the managers are yeah, I don't think anything has changed. I think it's all still there as it was before. There was a picture of it in the pack as well. I can't remember, I don't know whereabouts it was in the pack of the decibel meter. I also took the liberty, yeah, but so as far as I know, it's still there and still in use. I've been up to comedy events recently and have seen it up there working. So I'm assuming all is well and it's still being used.
I'm pleased they're back because I know about a year ago they definitely couldn't find it. And when you say that you don't think the smoking area is being abused, is that just because you haven't been to any parties there? Because I overlook it, I see it.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not going to challenge what you look and see. All I can say is that a few years ago, the management of the pub were, took it very, very seriously. I don't know whether they, what's changed, and put some stickers on the door to make it very, very clear this is not a fire. This is a fire escape. This is not for smoking. And I've been to events in the past where I think one of the glass collectors' jobs has also been to stop people from going out the door. Now, whether that's the same over the last year or not, I do not know. But all I can say is that when I have been made aware that there were issues in the past, and I think this was probably under the previous landlord, they appear to have taken steps to deal with it very effectively. But if what you're saying is that that's not the case now, I'm not here to to challenge that in any way. You can see it. All I know is that the occasions when I go to a party there or event upstairs, once a quarter or something like that.
Thanks, Chris. Then just as a local resident, have you also seen that there's definitely, compared to the past, there's a lot more rubbish accumulating at the front of the pub? The bins are often out there, and it's become much harder to get past the A-boards and the different barrels and things.
Look, I don't know if this is. I think yes, you're right. That there, perhaps there's less focus on the beautiful outward appearance of the pub as there used to be, and part of that is the when and where the bins were put out. It's not really for me to say whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know whether it's the role of this committee, but you asked the question, so I'll give you a straight answer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan, do you have a question for Mr. Reid?
Yeah, I do. I just have a straight, simple question. Do you think that perhaps, I don't know whether this happened in the past, but do you think that the decibel reader might be placed on the outside in the outside area? Because from what I've been told by residents, they can't hear the sound from inside. So I guess that the problem is the noise in that outside area that moves. So if the decibel reader, have you ever seen it used in the outside area, or might it be used there, I suppose?
As far,
I'm sorry, Chair. This seems to be going above and beyond specific questions concerning their representations, and people are starting to give evidence on issues that are addressed in my written submissions, and I can address with questions directly to me. I'm not sure what your legal advisor thinks. I don't want to interrupt. It seems like we're sort of spraying slightly.
I tend to agree. I think this matter is potentially beyond Mr. Reid's expertise. So perhaps,
I respect Mr. Reid, but yeah.
In the nicest possible way. I think perhaps either the license holder or the noise expert who's inspected the pub should answer Councillor Brennan's question if they'd like to.
Chair, a lot of this is actually in my written submissions in the report. We do have our decibel reader in place. We do have the signage about the smoking. It is enforced, but all this is slightly immaterial. If you look at the noise management plan, this goes above and beyond anything what we're talking about here, and even talking about the bins, that's been addressed as well in my written submissions and also the witness statement of Lewis. Specifically, we try not to repeat things that are in the written submissions.
Thank you. So we have heard from everyone who wanted to speak today. So now we'll move to concluding remarks. So what this means is everyone who has spoken today will have a couple of minutes to just conclude and tell us what their position is. So I'll start off with Ms. Shield. Could you briefly share your concluding remarks with us?
Sure, thank you, Chair. I don't have anything further to add in terms of evidence. I would like to underline just one point. Assurances from the operator are welcome, but residents need predictability. And what this review shows is that without clear and enforceable limits, problems recur and residents are left relying on repeated complaints. I'm not asking for the pub to close or for anything extreme. I'm simply asking for conditions that reflect how the premises successfully operated in the past and that protect neighbouring homes going forward. In particular, clear restrictions on amplified sound in the rear covered area, defined hours for its use and controls on cleaning and equipment. Clear licence conditions would give everybody certainty and prevent this situation from happening again. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Shield. I will now ask Mr. Bellringer to deliver his concluding remarks.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, my submission is that, for the committee to look through the conditions and add any appropriate conditions that they believe will mitigate the noise and give respite to local residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bellringer. Could I ask Councillor Brennan to make her concluding remarks?
In my concluding remarks, I must repeat that I really love the Victoria Stakes. I want it to thrive. I love the pub, everything about it, except that there seems to be too much noise coming from the outside area, from what I've been told. I think that from the sound of it, voluntary measures, however much they are repeated that they will be done, might be not be done in the sense they're open to interpretation. So I feel that we need licensing, clear license restrictions, because apart from anything else, there'll be a change of ownership again at some point, and the same problem might arise unless the license restriction clearly says this cannot be done. And the place actually was originally intended only for quiet dining. That area was intended for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Mr. Eagles, could you kindly share your concluding remarks?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that although it was Una Ms Shields who brought this review, I'm talking on behalf of 6 or 7 neighbours to me. We were all affected. Richard didn't seem to think that we did have disturbed rest and sleep. I can assure you do. My daughter's regularly affected, and other neighbours, and that it might not be a planning issue, but the fact is, because planning regulations are being ignored, that has led to this public noise nuisance that we're complaining about.
Thank you, Mr. Eagles. Mr. McCann, could you kindly share your concluding remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think after a number of hours, I think we actually want the same thing as the applicant. What we've proffered is not just assurances, but we've suggested specific conditions to be placed on a licence that will not just bind us, but bind any of our successors entitled. I would urge you to adopt those precise conditions because they've been drafted to ensure they're enforceable and they actually make sense. However, there have been, I think, 3 further conditions being mooted by your colleagues, which we think are sensible, and we would happily have those added or welcome those added, being added to the decision. A condition requiring training, a regular catch-up training of staff in respect of a noise management plan. Secondly, the suggested in Richard's report, a phone number available if anyone has concerns. And thirdly, the offer of regular meetings with residents. From what Chris says, the previous operator was in the area for longer than us. We'd like to get to know our local area even more, and we would welcome such condition on the licence. We've had a lot of technical discussions today, but I think what actually boils down to, I think the applicant and ourselves are in the same space. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. Mr. Reid, would you like to share your concluding remarks?
Yeah, at the risk of being repetitive, you know, there's been a pub there for over 100 years. I want to see a pub continue there. I look forward to the committee's adopting of some formal and well-managed restrictions. But even more than that, you know, I look forward to a way for the pub and local neighbours to who live much closer than I do and are much more directly affected, to establish a more formal dialogue, regular dialogue, where everyone feels that they're listened to and their issues addressed as well. But overall, I'd like to see the pub remain and once more, you know, be right at the heart of this local community.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. So this brings us to the end of this agenda item. The subcommittee members will deliberate after this meeting and you will receive a written decision within 5 working days of this meeting. Now, before we move to the next agenda item, I am going to propose a brief adjournment to give the subcommittee members a short break, and we will reconvene at 9:25. Please be on time. For those individuals who were here to listen to the first item, if you're interested in listening to the second item, you are more than welcome to stay on the call. That said, we all know that everyone has other commitments, so we will certainly not take offence if you decide to drop off the call at this stage. So thank you everyone. For those who are staying for the second item regarding Tottenham Post Office, we'll be back on this call at 9:25.
Chair, can I say thank you for myself to you and my colleagues from the team. The best news I've heard all night is we get decision in writing. Thank you very much. I will leave it there and hope the second hearing goes well. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good evening again, everyone. I'm going to reconvene this meeting. It is 9:25. I can see that both of the committee members are back. So, is the clerk back online, please? Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. So we'll move to the next item, and I'd like to thank the individuals who came here for the next item for staying with us so late, which relates to Tottenham Post Office. Ms. Barrett, please can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. The panel has before them the application for the variation of an existing premises licence for Tottenham Post Office 824 to 828 High Road N17 in the Northumberland Park ward. The application is submitted by Trinetra Food Limited. The director is Mr. Kanani, and is to extend the times for alcohol sales. A copy of the application is at Appendix 1, and it is seeking a sale of alcohol Monday to Sunday, 7 a.m. until 2 a.m. for off sales. During the consultation period, representations were received from the noise officer, from the Met Police, and from residents. In considering the representations, the subcommittee may take the following steps. They may determine to grant the application as requested, grant the application whilst imposing additional conditions and or altering in any way the proposed operating schedule, or exclude any licensable activities to which the application relates, or reject the whole or part of the application. As ever, we ask that clear reasons are given in the decision notice. In terms of background, the premises is located in a terrace of shops with residential above. The premises is situated in an area that is currently under special measures due to the level of antisocial behaviour taking place, including street drinking. The measures are led by the police under the Clear Whole Bill. The first phase is Clear, which aims to clear a particular area of gangs or organised crime. This can include a range of tactics such as high visibility patrols, community and local business engagement, use of covert tactics, and so forth. The second phase is Hold, which uses planned interventions to stop any further organised crime or criminality, filling the vacuum created by the Clear operations. And the third and final phase is Build, which brings together the multiple agencies, organisations, and third sector charities with the police and council to rejuvenate the area. The local operation is focusing in and around Northumberland Park, and the aim is to return it to a location which residents and businesses and visitors can enjoy. You have at Section 3, Chair, the matters relating to the licensing policy for consideration, and to remind members that the powers of the licensing authority, as I've set up above in terms of your areas that the factors that you can determine this evening, and to remind that Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act and the Human Rights Act also comes into play this evening, Chair. And there I can leave if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for Ms. Barrett?
No questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gunas, do you have any questions for Ms. Barrett?
No, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. So in that case, we will now move to representations, and I'm going to split the time as follows. So, Mr. Patel, I'm going to give you 15 minutes to speak on behalf of the license holder, and then I'm going to give the objectors 5 minutes each. So 5 minutes to Mr. Manuel, 5 minutes to Mr. Bellringer, and 5 minutes to the police. So I'll start off with Mr. Patel. Could you please make your representation?
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everyone. Member of subcommittee, licensing officer, representatives from the authorities, residents, and everyone present in the meeting. Thank you very much for the opportunity for allowing me to speak for the application. My name is Vishal Patel. I'm a friend of Pankaj Kanani, who is the director of the Trinetra Food Limited. We took over this small family-run post office and convenience store in July 2025, last year, just 6 months ago, and have operated responsibly with no licensing complaints or incident. I fully respect concerns from the noise team, police, residents, and any ward councillors, particularly street drinking, antisocial behavior, nuisance, and the whole phase of the clear, hold, and build. We support these efforts and aim to contribute positively. As per the Licensing Act and the Council policy, decisions should be open-minded and based on the specific evidence tonight, linked to our premises, not general assumption. I hope the committee approaches this fairly on that basis. None of the representation shows problem caused by our premises or shop. No crime, no noise logs, disorder, or incident under our management. Concerns are area-wide, not specific to our well-managed business. Our application has a strong measures for the licensing objective. 24/7 CCTV with 31 days retention. We got trained staff. We got strict challenge 25 policy, refusal to sell to intoxicated customers. We manage logs, external tidying, check to prevent loitering, good lighting, no audible noise outside. These have worked flawlessly in last 6 months with 0 issues. We are happy to add conditions like no single cancel at late night, enhanced dispersal or police liaison to support the whole phase. As a small business recently investing here, we need extended hours to serve shift workers, late commuters, and stadium visitors, offering safe, supervised access over unregulated sources. Nearby premises have similar permissions. Without this, it's hard for our family operations to compete, sustain job, and keep the high street vibrant. If the full 7 days to 2 a.m. feels too much, perhaps due to the weekends, we are happy to accept amendments like limiting 2 a.m. to Fridays and Saturdays nights initially. That gives meaningful support while monitoring progress under CHP. We prefer all days, but we are flexible and committed to safe operations. Granting this or with modification aligns with the area improvement and helps the build phase by supporting responsible small business. In summary, I ask the committee to grant the variation as requested or with proportionate conditions, including a phased Friday-Saturday approach to give our small business the support it needs while upholding the objectives. Thank you very much for listening. We are ready to answer questions and cooperate fully with the council, police, residents. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. I can see the clerk has raised his hand. Was there anything you wanted to come in on?
Yes,
Nazna?
yes, Chair. Yes. Obviously, we've just passed 9:30, and I just need to formally ask you as chair if you would like to extend the deadline of 10 p.m. so that this hearing can be concluded.
Yes, I would like to extend the meeting. Thank you. So, Mr. Patel, I have two questions actually. So my first question is, and this is more for my clarity. So on page 316 of the pack, there's an email from the establishment where the establishment says the request is specifically tied to event days. But listening to your representation now, it doesn't sound like what you're asking for is specifically tied to event days, because you were speaking about, for example, commuters who arrive home from work relatively late at night. So this seems like more of a day-to-day request rather than a specific event, a specific request tied to event days. Could you clarify what you are requesting, whether it's just for event days or if it's something you want every single day?
Sure, Chair. Sorry, we are not legal experts, so that's where there will be some confusion. Initial application was, and we still stand by with what Pankaj has applied. is for the event stays, but I don't think there is any clause or any way a council can provide the information, and that's where I represented that can we get 7 days, because then what happens is we will operate during event days more rather than going through and changing the permissions for the every year. Because for event day, I believe that I have to apply at the beginning of the year for the next year events, which will be time consuming and not something we will be able to do as a business, small business.
So perhaps Ms. Barrett can clarify this point, but my understanding is that if you want to organize a sort of standalone event where you stay open late for a particular event, you would apply to the council for attendance for that particular date. Is that correct, or is there a different practice for event days in this location?
Right, so yes, sorry, Chair. So the premises is actually within a stone street. It's a few steps away from the stadium, and therefore I'm sure wishes to be able to benefit from the increased footfall that will occur in the area on event days. You know, if they were wishing to do that, then they could have taken the option of putting in a temporary event notice 10 clear working days before the proposed event that was taking place at the stadium, and asked for the ability to extend alcohol sales for a longer period. It's interesting to note that the business is still the DPS, the name DPS, the old license holder has remained on the license as the DPS, and so is fully aware of the TENs and the requirements around this. But in fact, the application the committee has before them is asking for an extension of a variation of the license through till 2 a.m. each day. There is nothing about events on there. You know, Mr. Patel wants to say that now, but it doesn't change the fact that the application is for the variation through till 2 a.m. each day.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. So can I just clarify this with you, Mr. Patel? What is the intention behind this application? Is it because you would like to attract patrons on event days, or is it that you want to be able to do this every single day, regardless of whether there's an event or not?
So our preference, Chair, is to open until 2 a.m. on the event days only. The only reason we applied, because to do the paperwork and all those things with the small business, it will be harder for us. We don't keep our business. So if you see the license at the moment, it's up to midnight. But if you pass by or if you ask any resident or police, our business is not open until midnight. We are a family business. We are a small business. We worry about our life as well. So if there's any issues in the area, the first thing we do is we bring the shutter down, close the business, and make our staff safer. So it's more about to continue business during the events night. If there's any provision in council where we can get the blanket event day license, then we're happy to get that. But if it is like every 10 days, then it would be harder for us to do that. And hence we have applied for the 7 days so that, whenever there is an event, we can continue trading.
So as I understand it, you concluded that it would not be convenient to apply for attendance every single time there was an event, and so you decided to instead apply to vary this aspect of your license. My other question was, I understand you mentioned a phased approach where you would have longer hours on the weekends. Could you explain how you envisage this working?
So most of the events we have at the moment is on Fridays or Saturdays. So hence I requested, if you go via phased approach, if things work, because we are in the different phase from the security point of view. If that works, then we will see in the future if you want to amend and do 7 days, which is less likely for us to apply at the moment.
I'm just looking for the relevant page in the pack. So what I'm seeing is that you sought to extend times for alcohol days Monday to Sunday, but it sounds like you'd be happy with just extending this on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Is that correct?
Friday, Saturday should be enough. If Sundays, I'm not sure we have that
Fridays
many.
and Saturdays.
Yeah, because Sundays we better close it off because the event doesn't last that late on the Sundays.
That's very helpful to understand. Thank you. Those were my questions. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions?
I do, but I think Miss Barrett's got her hand up on something, so I defer to her first.
Ms. Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. On the back of the query you've just raised, Chair, maybe Mr. Patel can give some clarification on this. So he's saying, if he's saying that he's wanting the extension because of the events, but the events will finish by 10:30, 11 o'clock at the latest. And then there is the clearance of the high road, and the high road is then cleared of everybody and reopens again by midnight. So I'm not sure that there is an argument there, really, if you're saying that the extension is for the events, because by that time, up to 2 o'clock in the morning, the crowds of the people have already been cleared from the public highway following events finishing at the latest 11 p.m.
Did you want to come back on that, Mr. Patel?
No, sorry, sorry, Mara.
Did you want to come back on that point, Mr. Patel?
Yeah, Chair, it's the same thing. Like, the business does operate, and what we would like to do is, like, there is a customer who stays there later after the match as well. Some of the football matches do finish at 10 and there's a clearance period. But if you look at the other events like the music concert or the boxing event, that's where the things changes. And hence what we are requesting is the permission that will allow us to operate when the business is busier, rather than it will be operated like, whole year. So the permission will allow us to operate rather than me coming back and taking the permissions.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Ms. Barrett, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, just for clarification, sorry, I don't want to hog the meeting, but football matches don't really take place at that time of the evening, to be honest. And also there are conditions that the police would want to put in place around alcohol sales time, in relation to football matches. And on some matches, there is actually a concerted effort to deter and reduce alcohol sales. So it seems, I'm not sure if Mr. Patel is sure whether he's wanting it for events, as in music events and that sort of thing, or if he's actually he's now mentioned football, and I think he just needs to be careful, really, because you wouldn't get extended hours for football per se.
So, Chair, if may I allowed, Mr. Barrett, so let's make it easier and simple for everyone. If we can start with Fridays and Saturdays only, that will be acceptable rather than we going into the details. Now, I do completely understand about the restrictions from police, and we are happy to comply. As I say, we are a new operator, we want to comply, and we are complying. This particular premises, we don't have any issues, and we want to continue doing that rather than we get into the trouble. And we are not asking completely different. So if you look at the current businesses around us, there's one business, I think they got permission for 24 hours to sell alcohol, and it's not even 150 yards from where we are. So I don't know whether this will make any huge difference, but if we get permission until 2 a.m. For just Friday, Saturday, we are happy to accept it, and then we will see how it goes. Not to put the trouble to anyone. If residents say that there's an issue, we're happy to amend our permissions later on. We are flexible. We want to continue serving the community where we have got the post office, which we are serving at the time.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for Mr. Patel?
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. So firstly, just a very quick clarification. You said our, when you refer to quote our events, end quote. Do you run your own events at the shop, or do you mean events at the stadium? At the
Sorry,
stadium.
events
Okay.
at the stadium. Yeah, sorry.
Fine. So, okay, we've done a bit of a backwards and forwards on what we actually want here. So what I want to go back to the application and sort of get an understanding. What specific evidence can you provide the committee of requests and requirements for alcohol sales till 2 a.m.?
Sorry,
So what evidence? What is your rationale? What is the evidence for requiring alcohol sales till 2 a.m.? Are you getting people knocking on the door at 1:30 in the morning going, I want to buy a bottle of wine?
I don't think we got that desperate customers there. No, we got the business down the road, which is operating during the event days and nights very late. Seeing them, we want to stay in the competition. We don't want to lose the customers, and hence we are requested to say, like, you know, if our business works, then it's better to try and do that, because running a business is a bit tricky. If the customers goes to your business during night, he will go to your business during day. They won't come to my store and do the business. So that's where we are trying to make sure that the customer that comes during day can also come and get the services that we can offer.
Okay, and what assessment have you made of the impact of extended hours on nearby residents, particularly from midnight to 2 a.m.?
We already got the restrictions. So if you look at the current pub instance, we have to get someone at the door if there is a high population or high public event, to make sure that it's safe and secure. We have got the doors, so the noise doesn't go out at the moment. We don't play music indoors. So all those things, and if you see that we have got the bright light outside. So we don't want people to stand outside, and if they do, one of the staff member will go out and request them, can you please go and stand somewhere else? I completely understand, and I see the police officers hand up. There is an issue further down, but not related to our premises or our business.
And so you mentioned dealing with loitering and people drinking outside the shop. What staffing arrangements will you put in place during the extended hours to ensure both compliance and also supervision and ensuring prevention of loitering and drinking outside?
So just to clarify, we said we will support that. At the moment, I don't think that is happening outside of our premises. Now, I don't know. I can say for sure this happens further down the street. Now, we cannot control what they're doing there. It's something that police will be aware of, and they're dealing with it. And hence, we are moved into the stage 2 now of the precautions that police has implemented. And I'm hoping that by March, if everything's working fine, we should be in stage 3, where we will have the control over all the issues that's happening. So what we are asking for is to start settling up our business and see whether we can grow and improve or provide services to our customers during late night.
Thank you. Chair, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Councillor Gunas, do you have any questions for Mr. Patel?
Yeah, I know Councillor Da Costa asked that question, but I don't think we've got an answer that was like, in terms of what's the reason, like the key reason you want the extended hours for the business, like what's the rationale, what's the reason that you want to, that is it to make the business more viable, is it to I suppose I just wanted to kind of understand more that context, because as I think, as Ms. Barrett also said, in terms of like, if it's just for the events day, we know that most of the matches are during the day, or they would be way finished by 2 o'clock. Like, so what's the other, and also are you also saying that your neighbours, other businesses, local businesses have extended hours, and there's I suppose I just wanted to understand a bit more of the context of your thinking.
Sure, Councillor Guns. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the business that we serve customers during day, we want to continue during the evenings or the late night as well. Now, what we are seeing as a business is that lots of customer goes to other areas, further down the road where they sell late night alcohol. What we want to do is we want to keep the customers, because as I explained, the reason for that is if the customer is coming during daytime, we want them to be with us during evening, because we are losing business when the customer goes to other place. They're not coming back to us during daytime or our trading hours. And hence we are looking at during event days. But if we get the business during Fridays and Saturdays, that would be beneficial to us. But our main target at the moment is event days only. Now, I do get your point that quite a lot of match or the football matches will finish during daytime, but there's quite a lot of football matches that goes into extra time or delayed during the matches, and that's where it goes late after midnight. And that's where we want to make sure, like, you know, we do the business that can allow us to keep the local staff and we can provide them the work.
Do you have any further questions, Councillor Gunas?
I suppose in terms of the business, and it's like, it's a post office, it's a grocery shop, and it's also a premises that sells alcohol, like off license type of area, business. Yeah, I suppose I'm just trying to understand, like, beyond 2 p.m. is from 7 to 2 p.m. So you're saying that it's basically for the events day mainly, but you not necessarily that every single day you would be opening between that time, because it might not be a viable option to do that. Okay, that's it. Sorry, that was my kind of clarification and question.
Mr. Patel, would you like to answer that question?
Sorry, that for me?
Yes. Was there anything you wanted to add in response to?
No, I mean, it's clear. So just for the clarification, Councillor Gunas, it's a big property. So if you come and visit us, you can see that the amount of space we got on one side for the post office, space on the left hand side for the alcohol, and the centrals for the groceries and all those things. So it's a massive property, and that's why we want to use it at the maximum where we can. Now, I have lived in a flat above the high street above the business, and I do understand what happens if we make any noise, and that's where we are more serious about how we're going to run business. If we think that it's going to create trouble, we don't want to. I'd rather have something that we can enjoy, and we can make sure that the residents can have a good time as well. So we'll make sure that whatever we do complies with the regulation and doesn't create any issues for the residents.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Councillor Da Costa, did you have a question for Mr. Patel?
Yeah, I did, but no, it's fine. Thank you, Chair. Apologies for that.
I just have one follow-up question. Could you explain to us a bit more about sort of what kind of premises the Tottenham Post Office is? I've never been to your establishment, so I'd like to understand a bit more what the business model is. So if I'm understanding correctly, you have one section that is a post office, one section that's an off license, and is there maybe another section that is a bar for patrons, or a sort of pub?
We don't allow consumption.
How is it set up?
So let's say, like, you know, we got this big box. On the right hand side, there's a post office counters, and then you see the greeting cards and all those things when you enter from there. The middle aisle, we got few racks where we got different type of foods, dry and all those things. We got a freezer where we sell the frozen food, and then there's a big rack where we sell alcohol on the left hand side where the counter is. So it's basically not just one shop front. We got two shop fronts, so it's wider and there's lots of space inside. If you come for a visit, I can show you from inside. There's lots of storage space which we are not using at the moment. What we want to do is, if the business runs, we start using all those space to have the more space or the more product for the customers, and that's where we are trying with this.
So what would
Football
you
day.
use that space for? Would it be for patrons to come and sit down and
No,
drink
no,
inside
no
the?
one's gonna sit down. No, it's purely gonna be additional product for the groceries. That there's enough alcohol, enough space for post office. We'll use the more space for the groceries and other things. No
So
one's
if
gonna
I'm
sit down and have.
So if I'm understanding correctly, this establishment is a post office plus an off license plus a grocery store in one concept.
In a simplest way, Tesco with a post office.
Okay, got it. All right. I want to see if any of the objectors want to ask any questions to Mr. Patel. So I'll start first with Selina Emmanuel. Do you have any questions for Mr. Patel?
Yeah, I do actually. It's one question, something that he had said about if there's any trouble, he puts down his shutters. Now, for me, so this might not actually be a question for me. It's kind of negating.
I'm really sorry. You will have time to make your representation. At this point, I can only take questions, but later on you will have your allocated time to make statements.
Oh, right, okay. So again, my question as well would be, why do you need the premises to open until 2 a.m. in the morning?
Because we want to do the business that works and we can serve the customer while they are there. So what we as I say, like, no, we are a family person. We understand when there's issue. It's not about the business. It's about the safety and the security of everyone, including our staff. And hence we say, like, if there's an issue, police comes and just knock door and say, can you bring down the shutter? Yes, we will bring it down. We comply with the regulations. It's not something that we want to do without permissions that the other establishment may be doing around where we are.
Okay. This might, I don't know if it's off key, but can I ask which shop is open 24 hours in the high street? Can you clarify that?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to take the names of the business, but yes, there is one which I can see on the licensing register.
Can I ask Ms. Fingleton, is Mr. Patel able to name the business on this in this meeting, or should we not mention other premises?
If it's viewable on the register, I think then it can be seen as open information. So I don't know why he wouldn't be able to provide that information on this.
Okay. So in that case, Mr. Patel, if you'd like to name the premises, you can do so.
Okay, White Hart shop, which is right opposite the stadium.
Right opposite the stadium. I beg to differ on that. There isn't any shop that's open 24 hours selling alcohol.
They have got the license until for 24 hours.
Yeah, but
So I think we can verify that if it's on the register, we can fact check.
If you want, I can give you the reference number of that one.
Is that something, Ms. Barrett, that you can check?
I do check, yes.
3071.
It's okay, I don't need the number, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions, Ms. Emmanuel?
Do you have anything want to add? But can I ask? Yeah, if you want to ask.
Can I ask, or should we?
I don't know.
We just want computer, that's why. Yeah, we're just sharing the computer.
Is Miss Monica a registered speaker, Miss Barrett? Yes, then yes, you can ask a question.
So my question is, you're saying like what's going on. Are you actually, because we're resident, we know actually what's going on after 12 o'clock at night. If you've got flat above, do you know actually what's going on behind the shop?
I'm not sure. I mean, I get your point, what you're saying, but what we are trying to say is, like, the front of the shop where the business is, it's something we have to look at from the licensing point of view. Now, what you're highlighting is the street that goes past the parade. Now,
Sorry,
if
I
leave that,
highlight when you sell the alcohol, that's what I'm saying, they're taking the alcohol going behind. Do you know what's going on behind?
I will not say I know that. I know what happens in the street, but that is not 100%. It may be bought from us. Because if we are closing at 11:30, anything happens after that, it's not something they're buying from us. There is few other businesses who has got the license on the street, who has got late night license. So if the person is bringing from home, it's not something we can do. It's I know about the antisocial behavior that may be happening further down the street, but as per police is going down rather than going up. We don't want to be reason for increasing that. But that is something I will let police decide what the best way is for us to operate.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Mr. Bellringer, do you have any questions for Mr. Patel?
Yeah, I've got one question, Chair. Mr. Patel, in the lead up to the application, I know obviously you said you didn't want to put any TENs in or temporary event notices, but did you think about putting some temporary event notices in to test if it was needed to stay open till 2? So you could put a temporary event notice in till 2 or till 1 to see if you actually had customers that was needed and it would be worthwhile to do that.
So, Mr. Bellinger, I'm going to be open. I'm a friend of Pankaj. He did the application. He wasn't aware that it's going to go into this stage, and he wasn't aware that this meeting goes over 2 hours. So that's where I'm going to be open and say, no, we haven't tried it. He did it because he had the fried chicken shop restaurant takeaway in the past, and he thought that it's going to be simple as it was. He forgot there is alcohol, and that's where there's lots of issues in here. Now, being a good business person, we would like to explore as much as possible. Now, this application has gone in. In fact, he highlighted yesterday to me to say, Vishal, this is where we are. Can you help with us? So I'm not a legal person. I'm just, as a friend, I'm helping him. If you prefer and delay this decision, we are happy to do few TENs application, try and see how it goes, and then you can take decisions. As I said from the beginning in my speech, we are flexible. We'll be guided by you guys. You tell us what's the best way, and we'll do that.
I have a question, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bellringer, and thank you, Mr. Patel. I can see that the police officer would like to ask a question. Can I just confirm that that I'm using the correct title for you, Mr. Novak?
Hello there. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yes, Police Sergeant.
Police Sergeant.
I'm the ward sergeant for Northumberland Park. Apologies if there's a bit of background noise. I've had to commence my commute home. But my question to Mr. Patel is, there was only 2 events last year that finished at the Tottenham Stadium beyond 2,300 hours. Why was a TENS not considered for 2 events, and why was that considered outside of his capacity to apply for?
Sure, Sergeant. So as I said, the main reason is, even though the event finishes, there are customers who would like to have some alcohol, or there are people who works during the late night in the city, and hence we are looking at the Friday, Saturday, or the event days, because event locally doesn't mean someone is watching that particular event in the town or in the stadium. They may be watching somewhere in London and then heading back home. And that's where some of the people do come back late at the night, when we can serve them when they're going home. And just to add, Sergeant, have you seen any issues with our particular business?
Mr. Patel, you will have an opportunity later on to ask questions to the police sergeant. So for now, we're just asking questions to you, but later on, you will have the opportunity to ask questions to the police sergeant. Ms. Barrett?
That's right, Chair. I was just going to give an answer to the question Mr. Patel was just raising there, that he was asking the police officer about, but I shall wait till later then.
We can come to that later on.
Yeah.
Thank you. So now that we have concluded with questions for Mr. Patel, Miss Selina Emmanuel, you have 5 minutes to make your representation.
All right, bear with me a second. It's just a form of basically reiterating what I said in my when I submitted my objection letter. Bear with me a second. Oh. I'll try and break it down to sort of 5 minutes. So my concerns mainly was because of the prevention of crime, what's going on in the area, the prevention of, I guess, more public nuisance. And along with that as well is just the existing antisocial behaviour in the area. I do feel that with the store opening for longer hours, it's just going to exacerbate the issues that we have in currently at the moment. Along with that, because we already have the public drinking, loitering groups outside the shop, not only outside the shop, it's within the area of where I live because I am a resident. Not only that, as I said, you do find a lot of them out there. They're urinating, vomiting out there on the street. And bearing in my mind, this isn't just late at night. This is also when I finish work at 5 o'clock, I often go round through the post office. So there are people loitering. It was up to 6 when I was last there on Tuesday evening. And it's quite dark down that alley as well. Not only thing is that they're there, it prevents all the residents in the area from accessing that little walkway. And I must say they do tend to congregate out there because it's probably not just a hotspot. There's no cameras to my knowledge in that area that we can sort of overlooks that area. And those that loiter out there, they know this, well aware of this sort of thing as well. Residents as well, as far as I know, has raised concerns repeatedly in regards to the antisocial behaviour, which in fact did lead to, we had a community crime fighting event that was held by Met Engage. I think that was sometime in November. I could be wrong. Hopefully, Mr. Novak could sort of confirm that later on, sort of thing, where we were discussing antisocial behaviour in the area as well. And might I add as well that Haringey Council was there too. And I also do feel as well with the alcohol licence being extended, and if you excuse the term, I don't know if it's the right term, I tend to find that this is a bit of wishy-washy on what they are requesting for, because originally in the application it said to extend the license to 2 a.m. and now they've kind of changed it, from what I'm seeing, is just on event days. So again, as I said, it's a bit wishy-washy. I'm not too sure about this as well, sort of thing. As I said, it is likely to increase the issues that we've got having in the area. Along with that, I'd say public nuisance as well, mainly to local residents. I have children. I tell them not to walk through that pathway. That doesn't even actually help, because even if they were to walk around, where there is little pockets as well, where we have what's called an undercroft. So a lot of people tend to loiter around there as well. So again, unfortunately, they are witnessing people coming in, vomiting. And might also add, it's not just from the shop. It does happen on event days as well. We do have people urinating there as well when they're going to and coming back, not just on event days, football days as well, sort of thing. And sadly, even just people who come into park as well. But obviously that's not what we're here for as well. It's to do with the license. And as I said, it does have an impact on children as well, because I have to have my children tell them, don't walk around that way, you can't go through there, sort of thing. That's not to say that they don't walk past the post office. Only thing is they can't walk past that section. They have to go across the road where I feel it is safer. The other thing is as well, they do have, there are people that loiter outside the post office. I've seen it myself late at night. Unfortunately, I don't have any records or any pictures of this, mainly because, one, I'm not going to be outside at that time of the night walking to take pictures. It's a tendency because I drive, so this is where I see it, so it's safer for me. And not only that as well, we have had a few issues as well where we've had the police down and we have had knife crime going on. There was one that was stabbed. Actually, no, twice as far as I can remember as well, that came across there, where the road was blocked off, this very same area where they loiter just around the corner from there. The other thing as well, I feel where they need to, I don't feel they're going to take on any of this responsibility. I may have mentioned this as well before, whereas they said if there's any trouble, they put down the shutters. Now, they're just thinking of their own safety, okay? They're not thinking of the residents' safety. They're not even thinking of just people who are just passing by just to try and get home from A to B around that area. So that's, in that sense, I can't inconsiderate, basically. As long as they put the shutter down, they're safe.
Mr. Manuel, your 5 minutes are up. So we'll move to questions now.
Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question. Earlier, I don't know if it was you or your neighbor, you mentioned that there was something happening behind the shop. What is it that happens behind?